I think so many of our students are often told you can't be this, you can't do that. And I'm totally the type of person who loves to go, well, you know what? Since you're saying that, I'm going to prove it to you that I can. And I think a lot more people kind of need that message to help inspire them.
Welcome to Inspiring Teachers, a show bringing you classroom tips, motivation, and stories from successful educators. Join Tavis Beam and Danny Hauger as they explore the why of teaching.
Welcome to Inspiring Teachers. I'm Danny Hauger alongside
Tavis Beam.
And we've just been having such a great time bringing the show to everybody. Last week we talked to Todd Weiner, and he gave a lot of insight of a lifelong experience teaching math in high school and elementary school. And today we continue that elementary trend with Michelle from Pocketful of Primary. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Oh, we're so excited. It's great that you take the time. We know you're on East Coast time too, and it's a Friday, so, happy Friday.
Yeah, happy Friday.
Do you think teachers are like one of the leading users of the term Happy Friday?
Probably.
Michelle, could you tell us a little bit on the show? We're trying to get into the why of teaching and what brings us to this field. And could you tell us kind of your journey into getting into education? A lot of people who follow you on YouTube at Pocketful of Primary or Teachers Pay Teachers know you and know a lot about how you teach, but I'd love to know why and when did you come into the field?
So I totally have that cliche teacher story where I am that person who always wanted to be a teacher. I distinctly remember sitting in my second grade class and being like, you know what? I want to do that. Like, I want to be that person. And never really changed my mind. I mean, it was always just something that interests me. I was always into working with kids. I used to hold school on my front porch for all the neighborhood kids, and I took it seriously, like printed out worksheets, gave them homework. And it's always just been something that I'm drawn to. And I think for a lot of people, either you can kind of be born like wanting to be a teacher, or you can kind of find that path later in life. I definitely was born wanting to do it. The only thing that ever interested me besides teaching was like graphic design or marketing, something kind of in the business field. And ironically, when I graduated high school, I was awarded like the Business Student of the Year award. I'm like, awesome, I'm going into education. So I got into college and I actually graduated in 3 years. I was totally that overachiever and I just wanted to get into it. I was not about that college life and I just wanted to start teaching. So I graduated at the ripe age of 20 and I started teaching second grade in Salisbury, Maryland, so on the Eastern Shore. And I taught there for 3 years. And I recently made a transition to the Western Shore of Maryland. I'm now teaching fourth grade math and science in Crofton, and we are departmentalized. So, like I said, I only teach two subjects, math and science, and I teach it to multiple levels of students.
That's pretty fantastic. There's a lot to unpack in there. I spent a lot of summers in Wallsdorf, Maryland, so I love that part of the region of the country. What did you know? Second grade, was that a goal for you?
Yes. And ironically, when I was in second grade, not that I decided what age I wanted, but it was ironic that when I graduated, I had wanted second grade. I knew I didn't want younger than that because I'm not a huge fan of tying shoes and blowing noses, but I didn't really want older than that at that time because I thought that the attitudes were kind of going to be an issue and that intimidated me a little bit. So I knew I wanted second grade. Ironically, I got hired into second grade and I loved it until I came to fourth grade. And surprisingly, now, like fourth grade is my jam. I love fourth grade.
And what do you like so much about fourth grade?
For me, they just have more developed personalities compared to second graders. I mean, with second graders, your conversations can only get so deep, whereas by fourth grade, they're a lot more conscious of the world around them and they're just little humans and they have their own personalities. And I feel like I can make a bigger impact on them, but they are so much more self sufficient compared to second graders,
Right.
which I love. I love independence and I love just being able to have those real world conversations.
I definitely felt that too. I taught middle school and then went to fourth and fifth grade. And originally I had done kindergarten as well in my teacher prep. So there's a big difference between those developmental stages. And it's nice to have the experience across the board, but I did enjoy the fourth and fifth grade as well.
Yeah, I feel like it's a good age because they don't quite have the attitudes and they're not quite like the teenagers. They still like you for the most part. Like they're still willing to give you hugs. But at the same time, if you tell them to go do something, you can actually trust that it's going to get done.
Absolutely.
It's helpful, especially when you need those moments to put together the next step, the next plan, the next moment. And I love conversations. I mean, that's why we're here.
Right.
But it's also my background in radio broadcasting, 10 years with the Los Angeles Angels. and getting to the stories, getting to those connections. It's why I moved from middle school to high school this year, hoping to take it that one step further, those deeper meanings. And I think, like you, maybe you're hoping that some of the things you say, some of the conversations you have will stick with them for their lifetime, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing. When I think back to elementary school, obviously I have certain teachers that kind of stick out to me, and my hope is to be able to be that for my students, that they look back and maybe it's not because I help them grow academically, but maybe just I instilled certain values or morals in them that then they can carry on to the rest of their lives.
That's right. And in between, we'll do two quick segments. In between, I recorded a message today about how doing one more thing every day, even something like that, it's not even academic, I think can help people in your life. You'll probably find that true in your experiences through business and through the classes that you took in college as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And ultimately it comes down all to those relationships, and I think
Mhm.
that that's ultimately that's my favorite part of teaching, is being able to form a relationship with those students and then carry that on later into their lives.
Right. You spoke about how your previous teachers had inspired you. What is it that they brought to you that you're trying to bring to your students? What did you learn from your teachers that you're trying to pass on to your students?
Okay, so personally, like one teacher comes to mind, and it was my second grade teacher, ironically. He was just the king of engagement. Up until that point, I mean, I don't remember a whole lot from like kindergarten, but I know in first grade, I didn't really enjoy school. I was very much on the struggle bus. I mean, looking back on it, I was definitely in some intervention programs and just did not realize it at the time. And I wasn't really enjoying school until I got to his class. And he would wear hats. And I remember he had this entire wall filled with hats, and he had puppets, and he played the guitar, and he would play it within lessons, and we had songs that we would sing. And I was just so into it, and he was so passionate about what he did that it made me excited to learn, and that's what I hope to then instill in my students. And he put so much into me, not only in me wanting to be a teacher, but I learned guitar because of him when I was a teenager, because I remember watching him and I was like, this is really cool. I want to be able to do that. And so it's those little impacts that you don't realize that you then, kind of discover later on.
Michelle, that's awesome, because the first moment that I felt at home at my new school in high school, I told them the story about how when I was in high school, I was playing guitar trying to get into one of the bands, but I didn't play the punk rock that everyone else was playing. Mine was too soft. Oasis and Green Day were just not hardcore enough. So I was at the corner of the gym trying to impress people, some female, that were walking by, right? And what I found was that it meant so much to me to have that hobby that was mine and meaningful. So I told my students this story, and one of the kids came up to me after school and he said, "You know what, Mr. Hauger, I was about to quit guitar because people were making fun of me." He goes, "But because of you, I'm not going to, and I think it's going to be worthwhile for me too." And my little heart like melted, and I'm like, this high schooler just told me that. He waited till everyone left to tell me because he didn't want to tell me in front of everybody. But still, I was like, okay, this is then where I'm supposed to be right now. That's pretty cool. So I'm glad that you mentioned that.
It really is about those moments that we can
is.
share with the students where we really feel like we're connecting with them. As much as we're there to teach curriculum, I often feel like my job is more to connect with them, to have a lasting impact on their life than a longer impact on their life.
Absolutely. And I like that you mentioned that, when you were in that situation, that teacher pulled you through that. Connected with you and helped you through the struggle bus. I love that, by the way. That's great. I would love to try to use that in high school and just see the eyes roll from the teenagers. But I love that too. I'll take the joke on me if it makes a couple more people laugh.
Right.
My question then is, your most watched video on YouTube at Pocketful of Primary, which everyone should subscribe to right away after you watch this video and watch all of her content, is
Thanks for the
about...
plug. I appreciate it.
Oh, we do what we can. Again, background in broadcasting. So, so my question is, that most watched video is about this particular time in your career where the struggles were amounting and they were amassing, and you were considering, how you were going to move forward. Could you tell our viewers a little bit more about that and how you rallied?
All right, yeah. So I know the exact video you're talking about. I'm pretty sure it's titled "I Don't Want to Teach Anymore" or something along those lines. And one of the reasons I love YouTube and I love vlogging is the reflection aspect. And I had never started my channel to go into vlogging. I never thought my life was interesting enough for that. But once I started doing it and realizing I could look back on my entire week and start to make connections where I wasn't seeing them before was incredibly powerful. So I love now having those moments on camera, even though it's cringy to kind of look back on, but I'm able now to kind of understand why I was feeling that way. So It honestly goes back to my first 2 years of teaching, which that video is from my third year of teaching. My first 2 years of teaching, I was that stereotypical gung-ho overachiever teacher who went into the field knowing I'm gonna rock this, I'm gonna be the best teacher, I'm gonna do all the things, and quickly plummeted. And that just was not reality because teaching is hard and your first year is really, really hard. And I ultimately was not taking time for myself. I was so passionate about education, and I still am, but I was giving so much to my students and to my coworkers and to the other people in my building that I was not doing anything for myself. And after doing that for 2 years' time, I mentally started to really struggle because I wasn't doing anything for myself. And now that I've started taking time for myself and really making sure that I fill up my own cup before I try to fill up someone else's has drastically improved my outlook on teaching. I think ultimately those feelings that I was having was a result of just the constant effort that I was putting in and the constant exhaustion that I was feeling as a result. And once I started really taking time for myself, which seems counterproductive, right? Like, okay, I'm going to sit and watch Netflix on the weekend to be a better teacher. Doesn't make sense. But ultimately, if I'm rejuvenating and I'm relaxing, I'm going to be able to then give more to my students. And as a result, will be a better teacher.
Absolutely. I think we all go through some level of learning that lesson, and oftentimes the hard way where we burn out. And so is there any like activities that you would like to share with people that you think are rejuvenating? Like what do you do to rejuvenate yourself?
Okay, so that is so like personal preference. So what I'm gonna throw out there, feel free to throw it back, like if you don't like it. Personally, I am a huge workout enthusiast. I have been a runner since I was in
Me
high
too.
school. Yeah, yay. And so ironically, last year I was actually training for the Boston Marathon, so that would took up a lot of my time. And that was my way to relieve stress. Now it's actually going to the gym and lifting weights. I love lifting weights, and I personally think more people should do it, especially females, because it is so empowering. So I go to the gym 6 out of 7 days a week. That is like my me time. That is my time to relieve stress. That is my time to improve myself. And I just love that time. Like I put in the headphones, I kind of block everything else out. And for me, that's relaxing. I know a lot of teachers are like, oh, like I don't have time to go to the gym. And I'm like, no, but that's the best part of my day. That's when I really get to unwind. Besides that, I am a huge lover of Netflix. I'm not ashamed to admit that. Like I can sit and bang out, a season or two over a weekend. I also love reading. That's my favorite thing to do before I go to bed. I always open up a book. Sometimes it's like a PD kind of book for teaching. Sometimes I'm like, you know what? I want to read something not related to teaching at all. Like I want to read like a crime mystery or whatever. And besides that, working out, Netflix, reading, and podcasts. I love to listen to podcasts, usually in the morning on the way to work, and then on the way to the gym and on the way home. I love to listen to podcasts. And again, it's a lot of like crime mystery kind of stuff.
Right, right. Yeah, I've also been working out a lot, especially weightlifting too. I find a lot of value in that because you really see the growth over time, and you really feel like you're improving yourself and getting the endorphins flowing. I
Yeah.
think that there's been a lot of research that supports exercise regular really helps the mental state.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't have any workout tips, but I do see the balance. And what I love about that conversation is finding whatever it is for you, right?
Right.
Finding what works best for you. I plugged you in my class today because I used you, and this might be embarrassing to admit, as an example of what a strong teacher and vlogger and podcaster and balanced creator of content can be. And you mentioned how important, I think, in a way, it is to have strong female role models. And I think our teachers are often that in our lives. So whenever I get a chance in history, I pump up the women in history, especially those that are under-celebrated, because they're just not represented enough in our history books either. So for you, if you stepped into my room for the day, who are maybe a couple of women that you think are amazing to look up to as role models for high school girls today, and for middle schoolers, and for girls who are growing up and coming through the pipeline? And you know what? Don't answer that yet, because we'll get it in the next segment. That'll be a tease. Look at that. Broadcasting's coming out of me. Where are the Angels? Let's play baseball. We'll be back in a minute. This is Inspiring Teachers with Michelle from Pocketful Primary, Tavis, and myself. We'll be right back. Hi, I'm Danny Hauger, and I'm here with a Mentor Minute. So this tip could change your life if you let it, and it has for me. Each day when you're tired, It's winding down. You want to play a game, watch a movie, get on social media. Before you do that, you've earned it, do one more thing. If you do one more thing each day in a month, that's 30 more tasks that you accomplished and didn't push off to your future self, didn't push off to later. Take care of it now. Do one more thing. After a year, that's 300 tasks per year with some days off in between for excuses and things that come up. 300 more things you completed. In a decade, that's 3,000 more things that you have completed compared to the person next to you. You'll feel better. You'll start good habits. You'll accomplish more. You'll feel more accomplished. And more importantly, you'll have done a lot more with your time. Just one more thing. Don't forget to subscribe to Inspiring Teachers, the podcast for more tips and mentor minutes. I'm Danny Hauger. And welcome back to Inspiring Teachers. Danny Hauger and
Tavis Beam.
and Michelle Foray from Pocketful of Teachers. I'll admit, I'll own it during the show. I had to ask for the pronunciation on the last name. It's okay. It's better to ask than to get it wrong.
Absolutely.
I get Hauger mixed up all the time. But we were discussing going to break. Who are maybe one or two inspiring women that you feel like if you were to step into my high school classroom for the day, you'd want to teach a lesson on or want my students to understand?
So I'm going to go with Wilma Rudolph, who was a track athlete in the Olympics. And that's the whole like runner in me coming out that I'm, biased towards runners. But for anyone who basically doesn't know her story, essentially she was paralyzed as a kid. She had gotten sick. She had braces on. I think so many of our students are often told you can't be this, you can't do that. And I'm totally the type of person who loves to go, well, you know what? Since you're saying that, I'm going to prove it to you that I can. And I think a lot more people kind of need that message to help inspire them.
That's beautiful. I love the through lines. Again, the guitar connection. That's what people told me in radio too. Like, you're coming from Stockton. You're not going to do anything. I'm like, okay, let me make sure to mention you when I'm in LA talking to 150,000 people. Like, I will do that and I'll remember that. Like, some people, it's an important lesson, probably important in school and in elementary too, right? If someone's on your case, someone's giving you a hard time, don't fold, right? If the criticism is valid, maybe improve yourself. Like, always be willing to take an ear of criticism, but use that as personal fuel, not anger, maybe not to go and
It becomes
physically
motivation.
react, turn it into motivation.
Yeah,
Which I'll go off of that for one quick second. So, like I said, I had always wanted to be a teacher and my family knew that. And I used to get a lot of mixed messages. I mean, my family was always supportive, but I always kind of got that, well, but you're smart. You could be more than a teacher, or you have to know you're not going to make a lot of money. And first of all, the whole line of you could be more than a teacher is just mind blowing to me, because in my mind, like, teaching creates all other professions. It's a pretty dang important job if you ask me, in my opinion. But I totally use that as my fuel of watch me. Not only am I going to be a teacher, but I'm going to be a highly successful one. And I didn't realize that meant like, okay, I'm going to create a YouTube channel, but that's just how it came to be. And I love now to go back to those people and be like, oh yeah, well, I have, this many subscribers on my YouTube channel, and I'm able to make additional income through that and through TPT, and I'm able to live comfortably despite the fact that I'm a teacher, or really because of the fact that I'm a teacher.
It's so awesome.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And you said you've always wanted to be a teacher. And now that you are a teacher and have been a teacher for a number of years, how has your motivation changed to continue? Like what continues to drive you to do this great work that we are doing?
So the fact that I always wanted to be a teacher, I think it's just, I felt drawn to it, and I knew that I was interested in kids. I knew I loved the organizational aspect of it, because anyone who knows me knows organization is my jam. And I loved, getting to decorate the classroom. But I don't think I found that deep why until more recently, into my, third, fourth, fifth year of teaching. Ultimately, now my why is my students. 100%. I love my students, and I don't have kids of my own, so I truly consider them my kids, and I tell them that all the time. I love my students. I love to be able to be there for them. I love to be able to help them grow. I love to be able to help build their confidence, and everything I do is for them. And those late nights when I'm up planning an extravagant lesson, it's for them. And I think it took me a few years to really realize that. And it wasn't until I started building those deep relationships with my students that I realized how important they were to me and how much inspiration and motivation they give me within my job, which isn't the easiest thing in the world. It's a tough job, and it is very draining and exhausting, as I mentioned before, but ultimately they give me so much life and they make me so genuinely happy, and I don't think I'd be able to get that happiness from anywhere else.
Right.
That's so cool.
It really is wonderful because so often we can get lost and we focus so much on the curriculum. We focus on what needs to get done, and really what drives us, what fuels us, is that relationship. Those connections that we make are so valuable.
Definitely, absolutely. And I remember a moment too when I had thought during my undergrad about being a teacher, and again, lines of comparison, I was steered away from it. You know, I was told to do something else and to aim higher, which is so offensive in a way. Teachers are the only professionals who prepare every other professional in the world,
Right.
right? There
Yeah.
is, and it's such a noble cause too. It's
Mhm.
service. It's building a better future. It's making the world a better place. And I always think of, you know, the kinds of messages I can teach, you know, outside of the curriculum too. And I wonder for you, Michelle, is if you had a second grader and they're leaving your classroom today at the end of the year, what's one or two things that you hope that they would have learned from you besides the reading and the writing and all of those important things?
Yeah, I was gonna say, even without you putting that caveat, it definitely would be something more of like who they are as as a person rather than academic. I would hope that leaving my class, my students know to be themselves and authentically 100% yourself and do not apologize to anyone for who you are. And I want them to make an impact in the world. So personally, one of the reasons I love teaching is because I can be 100% myself, and I am weird and I am goofy and I use different accents and I stand on chairs and tables, and I love that I can be that in front of them because they are so encouraging, and kids are not judgmental. I mean, a lot of adults unfortunately are, and that's something that's learned, but kids will just accept you for who you are and they will love you for that. So I want to instill that in my students that, hey, you can be whoever you are and you don't have to apologize to anyone for that, and people will love you for it. And it's needed in the world, right? We can't all be exactly the same. Like that difference is what really unites us together. And then I want my students to make an impact. So I actually have the word impact up on the wall in my classroom because that's something super important to me. It's not just about building up yourself and developing that, it's how can you then use that to service other people. And for me, a lot of that obviously happens through my teaching, but I also love to just give back to people. I think that that is so important. And I am so incredibly grateful for the things that I have, that I want to find ways to give back to people. And I want to instill that in my students. One
Mhm.
thing this year that I do is every Friday, I pay for the coffee behind me for the person, sorry, pay for the coffee for the person behind me.
Mm.
And it's such a little thing, but I love to then tell my students, and I'm bringing in all the receipts and I hang them up on my wall to show my students like it's a small thing, but it does add up over time. And those are all people that I've made happy in a such a simple way. And I want my students to be able to take that and apply it to their own lives.
Wow. That's very deep. Yeah, I think that your students probably get a lot of encouragement from that to go out and kind of do the same types of acts themselves.
I love that too, in the sense that we're nearing a year's end. I know this will be an evergreen podcast, it'll live, but we just passed Giving Tuesday.
Yeah.
And so I know I always donate at the end of the year and I pick a couple of things. We've had the Northern California fires that have been going on. So I did that. And Charity Water is an organization that provides free water wells in developing countries. And so I donated $1 for each of my high school students and I showed it to them. And I said, I'm not just showing you this to do it for the show of it, for the support. So, you know, hey, this Mr. Hauger's not a bad guy. It's not that. It's to let you know that small gestures matter and that the awareness matters. And that even showing you this is more than this dollar is ever worth, is ever going to be worth, but you now know you're helping make someone else's life better. So they don't have to go and fetch water all day. They can go to school. They can be in a seat one day where you are and have a better chance at life like you do. And I think another thing that since we're in this portion of the show, that I want them to know is gratitude also, right? That no matter what challenges we face, and we all face them, no matter what obstacles we face, we all face them. How are you going to make your position matter, your impact, right? Matter? Where is it going to be? It could be anywhere. It could be by any passion, right?
Yeah, and bringing awareness to that. The other day, it just started downpouring, and a whole bunch of my kids were caught outside in the rain. And when they all came in, I said, "Isn't it so wonderful that we get to be in here right now and warm and dry?" And there was a lot of just that moment of recognition that there may not be, there are people out there who may not have that resource right now.
And I'll put in a quick plug if that's okay. So my second year of teaching, I did a donor streets project to get iPads for my class. I didn't have a lot of technology. It ended up getting fulfilled by a random person in another state, and I was just mind blown by that. And it changed not only like my ability to integrate technology, but it provided my students with so many opportunities. So after that happened, I knew that even though at that time, like I was still a new teacher, I was very broke. I knew that eventually I wanted to be able to give back to other teachers in the same way. So I started a hashtag. It's hashtag Pocketful of Positivity, because that's one thing that's huge to me. And I think it's very needed on social media is a lot of positivity. So essentially, anytime someone uses the hashtag Pocketful of Positivity on social media, I donate $1 to another teacher's Donor Choose project. So to date, I've donated over $1,000. So I'm getting close to the amount that someone else had donated to me to get this technology. But ultimately, my goal is to give that amount and then continue to give beyond that to be able to help other teachers in their classroom. So anyone watching this, if you want to go on to Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and use the hashtag Pocketful of Positivity. So just share something great that's happened in your day or something that you're choosing to see positive, put that hashtag on there. And then I, in turn, will donate $1 to a teacher's Donors Choose project.
Way to
That's
lead the way.
fantastic.
That is
Yeah.
so cool. We've been talking over this t-shirt idea where we would design teacher t-shirts and donate the proceeds to teachers. So we're working on plugging away on that too. So we know your time is valuable. We'll just ask you one more, and we'll tell all of our viewers and listeners, and on Danny Hauger's channel too, and Hauger History, to go check out Pocketful of Primary on Teachers Pay Teachers and YouTube. It's well worth it. It's the best investment you can make as an elementary school teacher. I think my wife watches it. Both of our wives are elementary school teachers, so we are in a pod. We are constantly talking this stuff, not just what we do on Friday nights. It's what we do every night. And that is our life.
We're just like, we should start recording some of these conversations that we're having.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're grateful for you. And our last question today is just that teacher who's come into you, and there's so many people who look to you for advice and who you give inspiration to. We love that. If someone's asking you today, they're about to enter their classroom for the first time in 4th grade, what's your number one thing for them? What's something you wish you would have known day one? What would you say?
Oh, okay. You limited to me to one. I was going to say I have 3.
Take 3.
Yeah.
You know what?
Okay.
Take YouTube. Go for it.
Number 1, be willing to ask questions. I was so afraid my first year to admit that I didn't know it. Not that I didn't know anything, but there were things I didn't know and I was afraid to ask for help. So be willing to grow and ask questions, and it's okay to admit that you don't know something. Number 2, you can't do everything. I love the quote, you can do anything, but you can't do everything. Do not try to overload yourself within your first few years trying to do all the things, because it's not going to go well. Instead, pick one subject area or even one area like organization, whatever it is, to really devote yourself to that year in order to improve on it, and then pick something new every year. And after you get several years experience, you will already be a lot better in a lot of different things. Finally, take time for yourself. I mentioned how I definitely got burnt out within my first few years of teaching, and take time for yourself. Even though you may feel guilty and it's difficult, you can't pour from an empty cup. And when you rejuvenate yourself and you fill your own cup, you can then be a better teacher for your students.
That's some great advice. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
And there's so much more at Pocketful of Primary on YouTube you can watch and enjoy. Michelle, we are so grateful. We broke apart the channel and split it off into its own thing. It's now void of me and it's us, and we're going for it. And we're so grateful that you would join us and take this time. We hope you'll be with us again.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. And I love what you're doing, because I think more teachers need these kinds of messages. So sure, come check out me, but also, like, if you were watching this, spread it to other teachers because they need to see it as well.
That's right. Everyone needs that motivation to do a better job for their students so they can do a better job in their career. Thanks so much. And for that's us for it. Yeah, love it. See, no, also stop right there, but that's us for it is pretty good. That should be our hashtag. So Danny Hauger and Davis Beam and Michelle Foray, thank you for joining us. We'll see you on the next edition of Inspiring Teachers.
and get away from immediate access to either cable news or food to keep them from distracting me. But yeah, I mean, now that I'm doing Skype teaching or Zoom teaching, distance teaching, going in periodically to productions, coach productions, more time to do it away from UConn now than I did before.
That's phenomenal. Can you tell us, because I don't think we got into really your origin of how you started down the road in education, and even how you began being interested in dialects and accents. How did that begin for you? What was the impetus for that?
Back in the day when I was a Hollywood dialect coach, whenever I was on a talk show and that question was typically the first question, I would really be a wiseacre, and I would say, in 1950, didn't every 4-year-old Jewish kid in Brooklyn wake up one morning and say, "When I grow up, I want to teach people how to talk with accents in the movie"?
Right. Yeah, of course. It's reasonable. That's great.
But in 10th grade, I was in my first high school play. Of course, I wanted to be a professional actor, majored in theater at the same university that I just retired from.
Mm-hmm.
And all through high school and college, I was the one who usually got cast in the accent or dialect roles because I was the one who could do them. I never learned them. I never put specific effort into any system. I was a parrot. I was an accent parrot. I'd hear, literally, my father brought home the original cast album of My Fair Lady in 1956 when it first opened. I was 10. Now you know how old I am.
Doing the math. Neither of us are math teachers here. We're going to have to get a calculator in.
72.
Okay.
But he put the record on and I'd hear, "All I want is a room somewhere." And I went, "All I want." Henry Higgins said, "I find the moment I let a woman make friends with me, she becomes jealous." Exactly. And I would just repeat it. And then he pulled out the Finian's Rainbow with the bad Southern accent and the semi-good Irish accent on that album. And I would imitate then, whatever I heard, I imitated. It didn't matter whether it was good or bad or right or wrong. About 2/3, 3/4 of the way through college, I was studying to be an actor still. I decided that I didn't have a thick enough hide to pursue a career where you applied for jobs every other day, every other week, and got turned down 99 times out of 100. So I switched my focus, crammed in 4 or 5 classes in speech in my senior year and took a year off, sold pants, worked in politics, and then went to graduate school in speech communication. Happened to be at Temple University at a department back then. Not many have this model anymore, but back then a lot of speech departments had both speech communication or rhetoric and public address and speech pathology in the same department. So even though I wasn't majoring in speech pathology in grad school, there was crossover, there was interest. My advisor, even though he was a rhetorician, was the co-author of voice and diction books. Long story short, my first job in a speech department, I was asked to create a voice and diction class. And in the meantime, I'm still doing a little bit of acting out there in Wichita, Kansas, and theater was in our same department. And one of the directors, wonderful director, a woman named Audrey Needles, said the fateful words to me one day in around 1975. "You do accents so well, why don't you teach them to the cast of my play?" And the first attempt was dismal. Absolutely worthless, because I assumed that everyone was a parrot like me. And not true. I mean, I would say, "All I want is a room somewhere," and they'd parrot back, "All I want is a room somewhere." Right. Maybe, I don't know, 20%, 15% of the actors that I was doing the modeling for were able to actually model it. And now, to make another very long story short, there weren't many pedagogical materials back then in the mid-70s in accents and dialects for actors. The ones that there were either made the same assumption I had, "Here it is, parrot it back," or they gave you the pronunciation changes in phonetics, in International Phonetic Alphabet, which is a very important part of it. I mean, I don't deny that.
Education opens up your mind. It's like a flower opening up, and it is to you going to be the guide through life. It's how you step on the road. It's how you choose the road. It's how you make it down the road. What road are you going? Well, everybody's going on some road. Would you like to go on the informed road where you know kind of what's coming and you prepare for it? Or would you like to just dance unguided and without purpose in the wind? Well, education is what most people need.
In 1957, Melba Beals was one of the Little Rock Nine, the integrated Central High School. She was also my teacher my freshman year at Dominican University of California when I was taking radio broadcasting classes. I had the pleasure to sit in a classroom with her, and I had the chance to learn a lot from her about history, life, and radio broadcasting. When we started the show Inspiring Teachers, I looked forward to the chance to share her story about how education is the key to all success in life. And you will hear from her firsthand about her experiences and how knowledge and learning were the gatekeepers for her to achieving great things in her life. Enjoy the interview, and we appreciate Melba Beals for everything that she's been for us as a country and everything she's been for me as a teacher.
Welcome to Inspiring Teachers, a show bringing you classroom tips, motivation, and stories from successful educators. Join Tavis Beam and Danny Hauger as they explore the why of teaching.
Hey everybody, Danny Hauger here, and on November 20th I had the privilege of going to visit one of my former mentors and teachers, Melba Beals. For many, Melba is a civil rights icon, including myself, and she's found in so many of our history books. And the stories that she has written document a time that was very difficult in our country. Melba was more than that to me. In fact, my first day of radio class at Dominican University of California, she was just my teacher. She was just Melba. And over the year and a half that I spent there, I was very much impacted by her wisdom and her influence. And as I learned her story, I knew that the words that she spoke to me would stay with me for a long time. She taught me about more than just radio, but about life and how to be a better person. In this interview, we talk about many things, including Little Rock 1957. We talk about current events, how to be a good parent, and how to love yourself first before going out into the world and expecting other people to love you as well. I hope you gain insights from this interview. Feel free to leave a comment down below. And if you are touched by someone significant in your life, share with us how their stories have impacted the person that you've become. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Melba Beals.
I will not fear. And you're going to love where it is you're going, Danny. And so that's hard to do. But, you know, little Melba was strange. At 4, I kept saying to everybody, where did I come from? And they said, the stork brought you.
Right.
And I said, okay. And I thought I really want to leave Little Rock. So I put my red wagon in front of the house every day, and I went and sat in my wagon waiting. And they said, what are you waiting for? And I said, the stork. And they said, why? And I said, because if he delivered me, he delivered other people. And I'm going to fly right out of here with the stork, right? And so you never know what a child is thinking. See, the one thing I do remember is when my daughter was little, she was strange. She came in one day at 4 and said, the cup and the straw are an integrated functioning system. The straw allows you to draw liquid out. Already then, my husband and I said, well, now, all right. And she said, I want puzzles. So we brought her back 3 or 4 puzzles. No, I want 9 puzzles. Why 9? So to entertain herself, she would dump all the contents on the floor and then try and put them together. Okay. And the doctor said, well, she's an accelerated child. And you have to deal with her on that level or you're lost. And so with every person you meet, they're accelerated in something.
Yeah.
And you have to deal with them on that level or you're lost. And it's fun when I taught to ask each class, why are you here? And what is it you would like to know by the end of the semester? You'd be surprised because half the students, some of them say, oh, I know how to bake a lemon pie. Well, this is Sociology 101. We're unlikely to touch that subject, you know? Yeah. So, but education is the most extraordinary key. And oddly enough, no matter who you are or where you came from or how oppressed you are, education is the key out.
What do you think it does for someone when they have a quality education?
Well, of all the things that influence you, it is my belief that your parenting, your religion, and your education are the 3 main tools of your life. If you're uneducated, it's like holding an umbrella directly above your head, and you're only going to go and do what is beneath that umbrella. Being uneducated is as though someone is ahead of you and above you, pushing you down. Education opens up your mind. It's like a flower opening up, and it is to you going to be the guide through life. It's how you step on the road. It's how you choose the road. It's how you make it down a road. What road are you going? Well, everybody's going on some road. Would you like to go on the informed road where you know kind of what's coming and you prepare for it? Or would you like to just dance, unguided and without purpose in the wind? Well, education is what most people need. Now, there's some genius people, obviously, founder of Apple. There's some people that just don't need it. They're born with it. They're born with the tools. Some people are born with incredible tools.
I mean, we both have strong maternal influences from our mothers, and I read that your mom was one of the first African-American graduates in 1954.
Right.
How did watching her reach those heights
Your kids are the only thing your kids can look to is you and what you accomplish. And so you can't say to kids, do this. You have to do it yourself. They don't do what you tell them, really. They do what they see. Mm-hmm. So the fact that every September my mother was both taught and went to school, and the fun part for me was to leaf through the brand new books she got, and then she would teach me every day a new word. Phenomenon was one, for example. That was such a word. Phenomenon. I'd say phenomenon. And so you seeing differently and being exposed to all these points of view are what make you want to go forward. My grandmother was the greater rock. My grandmother. I didn't go to her funeral and refused to see her dead, because my grandmother for me is alive today. I write a lot about her in my books because she was at the core of my understanding of humanity, at the core of my understanding of religion, and at the core of my understanding myself. I would go in the backyard every day and late in the afternoon with her, and she would water her 4 o'clock plants. And that's when I'd ask her all sorts of questions about, what are we doing here in Little Rock? Why are we here? Mm-hmm. I'd ask questions until it was time to leave. Quilts that maybe she had done or something like that, and put it around my shoulders, and we could talk more. I asked her all the questions that you would ask somebody. And so, yeah, she was my everything. And I write, she was my Christmas, my New Year, she was my everything. Because my mother was a genius, an intellectual who was busy going to school, being educated. Whereas my grandmother was home and I could talk to her all the time. That's another aspect I think is important in parenting, is you have to talk to your children. And that means to shut up. Don't lecture all the time. Now, some people are inspired. Many of the people who are stars, or many people say that the fact that their parents worked very hard as a maid or as a whatever made them, rise up to be who they are. But generally, children see their parents as role models, generally. And so you're all they have. For the first few years of her life, little Dana isn't going to know very many more people other than you and her mother, right? And you're going to be amazed when she gets older how much she mimics what you do. I used to use one curse word, but I was Miss Religious, Miss Wonderful, other than that. And when I was pregnant with a second child, I would walk up the stairs and I'd get to the top stair almost and I'd be so tired I'd go, oh, blah. And then one day, Kelly, who at the time was 3, I watched her. She walked up the stairs. Second from the top, she put her hand on her knee, breathed really deeply and said, oh, blah. Mm-hmm. I never said that word again. Because I realized every single thing that came out of my mouth, didn't matter what I said, mattered what I did. So, oh yeah, parenting has changed me. I would say 100%. Adopting 2 boys at 50 completely altered my life. Completely altered my life. I went back to school, got another doctorate. I have written, a lot of stuff that I did after 50.
That's interesting, because I'm always thinking about what's next, and it's hard. Did you feel like you could see what's coming around the corner, or did you have to get there and experience it once you had the kids and be like, okay, now I see I need this, or this is my next
This step. Is what trust in God is that if you really trust God, you're willing to step out into off the branch of the tree.
Yeah.
It's like my grandmother used to say, if you are falling off the side of a mountain and you don't know how will you get saved? How will you save yourself? First, consider what you could do, right? I could grab this, that, or the other.
Yeah.
And past that, look at the scenery and enjoy, because you're protected by God. I think we are gaining just because more people talk about it. And more people are willing to admit that how you feel about me, how I'm treated as an individual is important. You know, the essential thing that a child must have. My little boys who were little, they were cutest twins in the world. People kept wanting them to model, but I was advised by a therapist, and I know it to be true, that they didn't have time to model. If they were going to live and be well, I had to do things with them that made them believe they were needed, they were wanted, and they were loved. Mm-hmm. So all their life, I say it too often, I love you. They'll say, I love you, Mommy, and I'll say, but I love you more. So allowing your baby to believe that, you know, she might be able to get a snack here or a snack there, and then treating her with respect as to what she chooses and how she grows up in terms of exercising her opinion. And sometimes her opinion is not going to agree with yours. You're going to walk into her bedroom and think, oh my God, this is hideous. The turquoise floor, the red top, oh my God. You know, could I have possibly, how did I go wrong as a parent? Well, you didn't go wrong as a parent. You do have to make them think that you absolutely adore them and that you honor and worship their skills and talent as they are. The willingness to take a risk. We can't always all not be in pain. One of the scary things about some of the black people I meet these days is to talk to them about freedom and they want it, but they say, we don't understand why you're willing to risk all that you were. And, you know, you got to understand, how much do you want what you want? And what are you willing to do to get it is a big question that pervades your entire life, Danny.
Yeah.
Say, God is with me. I know that's going to be okay, and this risk is necessary. I can't be comfortable Melba all the time. Well, no, because whatever you do, Danny, there's going to be challenge in it, and you can't sit home and say, well, you know, for example, when we went to Little Rock recently for the 60th anniversary, I wrote an article about this. One of the things that made me sad was not only did I require the FBI, but I required the Little Rock Police and Special Service to take care of me. That meant I was in more danger than before because we get all these death threats on the internet. Well, now, do I stay home because of that? Can't do it. So I've lived a life of risk.
Yeah.
On the internet at any time. I've had to move because of it. I've lived in houses in Sausalito where somebody got a hold of my dress. Not only did they come over and boom my tires 3 nights and days, but they were just a menace. I thought,
How do you keep love in your heart?
That's hard sometimes, but if you can't keep love in your heart, you spend a lot of time hating. Hating is an exhausting thing. And I do get pissed off at people. Don't tell me I don't. But then I have to like pull it in and say, look, at the time I'm wasting. And usually this is the fun part when you're doing that. When you're hating somebody and really wanting to put them down, you know what happens? Half the people don't know it. That's number one. And secondly, they don't care. You're busy thinking you're hurting them. Not really. Not really. You're really hurting yourself.
Are you able to turn it as motivation for yourself?
Sometimes, yeah. And in Central High School, there was certainly some motivation.
What do you take joy in now?
Watching the soaps. I love shopping. I love Christmas.
Has your Christmas season started? Does it start after Thanksgiving? Is it now?
Mine started in July. And they have Christmas in July over at QVC. I bought my tree then, my fluffy floss tree, and I sing the music. And my children just hate it. My grandmother always said I was in the interesting part of the calendar because, you know, I'm like, July, I'm like, oh, I'm dreaming of a white Christmas. August, I'm Nat King Cole. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, Temptations. Now I'm Temptations in their Christmas album. You know, I'm way into music. I was People Magazine's rock music critic for a while. And that was fun. I did a lot of stuff in my life. The other thing in your life is if you decide you want to do something, take a break, go.
Yeah.
You're not confined to one area. And particularly they thought I was confined because I'm a black female. Well, you know.
Yeah, see how that...
First time I showed up, imagine this was in the 70s. I was in the 70s and 80s. I was working with people. I showed up with my ID on, and Grateful Dead treated me like dog poo. The rock and roll groups, they would not believe. They didn't think, you know, there was the groups that were popular. That was, you know, what's Welcome to the Hotel California, those guys.
The Eagles.
My favorites of Eagles. I loved their work. And there was just all sorts of people that that were really young, like when I was doing it, that Journey. Mm-hmm. And a lot of interesting people. And I had fun observing and learning more about rock music, and that was interesting, you know. But I'd show up and they'd say, first I was older, pudgy little black lady. I'd say, well, careful, I'm the the one that's going to be writing about your album.
Yeah.
Yada, yada, yada. I know you want something positive, don't you?
Were you able to still, what kind of review did they get?
If they were bad, they got bad.
Is that true? That's it?
Yeah, but if they were good, they were good. Most of the ones I went to were good.
I think
There was some great music in that era. But some of those guys really misbehaved. I watched that guy, what's his face, out of the Eagles. They used to take hacksaws and they'd go into hotels and just bad boys. But I enjoyed every moment of that.
Well, there's an interesting question then. Does someone, a musician, a comedian, anybody, do their personal actions affect whether or not you can enjoy their art?
Good question. In some ways it does. Like what's his face, who's the movie maker? I love his movies, but he's accused of being a pedophile. I can't attend those movies.
Right? How about like a Bill Cosby? Can you still watch the Cosby Show, or is it?
I actually cry. I cry. Because they had the 50 ladies on the cover of People magazine. And, all of these ladies are not doing this for nothing. And I just, it makes me sad when people like Cosby achieve something that no one else has achieved, a pedestal that no black man has ever gone to. And then he's going to soil it like that? Look how many kids look to him as a role model. It's like Obama, he was so much and he had so much. Look at all the people that look up to him.
Yeah.
But I pray a lot. That's really the only thing you have is your prayer. And I say this little thing, which is God loves me. Some days are so difficult. First of all, I don't like being a little old person. I don't like, and all of it doesn't have to do with age. I probably should be thinner. I don't like the time. I should have spent more time, this shoulda, woulda, coulda, as an athlete. I should have exercised more. I should have paid attention to all parts of my body, and you almost do that because you will get old. Take care of your body as well as your mind. I was really invested in my mind, and you can't do that. You have to take care of both. You do have to run, exercise, do all the stuff that they say you have to do. You have to do it. Older now is when I learned you need to start preparing for old age now. Not later. Danny, why are you putting away that $100 a month for old age? Because it's more difficult than you think. And old age is a compilation, a gathering of all your unsolved problems. Remember that.
That's
It's a Christian Science saying.
Okay.
Old age is a compilation of all your unsolved problems.
Oh, that's scary.
So all the things that I was when I was younger that I shouldn't have been, overeating, here you go. I don't move as fast. I need more surgery. I don't want it because my heart's not going to take it. You weaken all of your organs by being overweight, by not taking care of yourself when you're younger. And so now it's my time to contend with them. I just got a treadmill for seniors. It only goes 5 miles an hour, and you put your hands on the edge, and if you press a certain button, it screams. And and you tie a thing to your clothes. And if you fall backwards or something, the thing goes off with a siren, right? So it takes energy to be old and not in good shape. Now, so age is just a number. But to me, it's a burden because I'm not getting around. I like to go. I was like a bull in a china shop, but now I can't drive. So I have to wait for a driver, and I don't like that part of it. But my best advice is start planning for it when you're 25. Yes, go, balance your life. Balance is the key. Here's what I tell. Is it how blessed are you?
Yeah.
There's only one of you.
Yeah.
God made only one of you. And you have to know how important you are. And when you talk ill about someone else, you diminish your own importance. You're not really doing anything to hurt somebody else. You're diminishing who you are. And always, always respect the people that you come in touch with, because where did they come from? Who made them? The same God that made you. Whoever you worship, right?
Yeah.
So there's no one on the planet accidentally. Everybody's here for a reason. And whomever your little partner is, your little friend is, I don't care what they look like, what they eat, how they speak, they're an equal. Respect them. Because unless you respect them, you can't respect yourself. You have to respect yourself in order to have carved out where you're going. If you don't have a map that says where you're going, and you don't think about it, you're likely not to get there. I'm not, as an individual, a human on the earth, an inspiration. I just try to do my best every day. But whatever words, whenever I speak, may the words of my heart be acceptable in thy sight. And so it's what God wants to convey to you. And remember, everything you feel aside, or how we have to spend some time, Danny, finding our own balance. Like today when you leave, I'll meditate and pray, and I'll say, oh God, there must be a willingness and an acceptance of who you are. Right. And before you can really love anybody else, you have to like Danny.
Mm-hmm. Such words of wisdom shouldn't be soon forgotten. And I'm so privileged to be able to have had this conversation with Melba, but more than that, a year and a half's worth of class, wisdom, and so much more than lecture, but conversation and dialogue. And I continue to teach my students her story and hope that many generations will learn to be brave, courageous, and loving, just as Melba was. I'm Danny Hauger. Thanks for listening, liking, and subscribing, and we'll see you on the next edition of Danny Hauger Interviews, Danny Hauger Podcasts, or right here on YouTube. Thank you for watching. Hello and welcome to Inspiring Teachers. I'm Danny Hauger. Tavis Beam is at home. This is a show about adding to your teacher toolkit with over 100 past episodes interviewing teachers who are well-wishing and share their toolkit with you. Today is about having big discussions in the classroom and being open to it, and also how to deal with interruptions that you didn't expect. The cat literally jumps in front of the camera on cue. I let her in today, which is usually a no-no here in the studio because she just is very distracting and wants all the attention. And sometimes we have students who break from our lesson plans because they want or need attention, or are calling out for something that needs to be spoken of. And today I thought that would be a good connection. Of course, our students are not like animals, they're not like cats, but they can certainly take us in different directions other than that we've planned. And that doesn't have to be a bad thing. Now she's hopped up in my lap here, and I'll hold her for as long as she wants to be held. That's a perfect metaphor, and I'm going to get back to it in just a second. Just want to thank my friends at ampeduplearning.com. They've been supporting our show for a while now, and they're owned by 2 teachers. They have teacher resources and lessons and projects for your classroom. They're all reasonably priced, and you support teachers when you shop there. Plus, it's owned by teachers, so all the better. Their social media giveaways at Amped Up Learning are pretty fantastic, too, from free lessons and resources to giveaway items. It's a company I'm really proud that has been a supporter of our show for a while. So go to ampeduplearning.com, check out their math, English, reading, science, resources, everything from in the classroom to distance learning materials are there, including a lot of my Hauger history assignments and projects and journals that I've created. So use promo code HaugerHistory10 at ampeduplearning.com and go grab yourself something new. Okay, so it's April, late April, and news events have swirled around. If you teach anything from lower elementary up, I'm sure you've heard questions or comments or wondered if you should discuss current events. My idea is you should always have a few minutes flexible on hand to talk about what's going on in the world. And you can always relate it to something you're teaching, just about always. So when students bring up questions, I'm fortunate to be a history teacher. Some colleagues say that I'm unlucky at this time to be a history teacher. I think that's the exact opposite. You want students to be interested in your class, to be inquisitive, to have their minds wrapped around, and you don't have to try very hard to reach a student who has a question or wants to talk about something that's going on in current events. And we should embrace that, offer that as a forum, and even if there's a distraction, set the ground rules so that all conversations can lead to positive roads and build classroom community. A couple episodes ago, I talked about my oral heritage project where students go and interview someone in their family. A lot of them document how they got to the city that we're in right now and through the various roads and thousands of miles, family journeys that have brought them there. When we do that assignment, everyone is so amazed by the stories of our ancestors and family members that it brings us closer together because we understand each other more, the sacrifices that our family members have gone through, the difficulties and challenges that they have faced. And once you have a community like that, which I would say is a prerequisite maybe to today's lesson and episode, you can accomplish anything. So I want to make sure that the same way that students felt comfortable sharing in that environment where they're pulling personal materials and quotes and photos from their past, knowing that they're going to be well received, respected, and listened to, is the same foundation you want to have for talking about current events. You don't just throw it in as like you're walking into a chef's kitchen with all the tools but have no idea how to prepare the meal. There should be some ground rules, and I think they're mostly resolved around listening, letting someone finish a point, restating somebody's statement so we're not taking each other out of context. Jeremy said that he feels this way about XYZ because XYZ, and I agree or disagree because 1, 2, 3. That way we're all having the same conversation. We're not skewing each other's words, and that's going to let people feel safe and honest about participating. It's also great not to force anybody to participate on really big issues. So we've had some important court cases in the last few weeks. We've had violence in the news, domestic and international. And these things can be really tough. They can also be triggering. We might overuse that word sometimes and maybe underappreciate what it means. So giving a quick disclaimer of how long the conversation you want it to go, how much time you have to devote, and then say if this is something you want to do more, we can devote more time to it in the future. I think all those things can be helpful. I also think it's great to take on some news sources. Try to pull from a variety of sources every time you do this so they don't see the same sources all the time. And reading factual summaries so that we're not having a theoretical discussion, grasping at straws and crayons out of the box without properly notating what's happened, and then having a discussion about how we feel about what's happened. But getting the facts down first for grounds for conversation and agreement, I think, is important. As a teacher, I feel like as much as I can, I stay out of conversations, but I just facilitate them. When a conversation's going 100% one way, sometimes I try to offer a counterpoint or what others might be thinking or might have said or have been saying. In debate, we call it inoculation, meaning here's what people might say against this. Before they speak about that, I want to tell you why I disagree with those notions. And that can also help give scaffolding to an argument. There's also a good point about understanding each other, and even when we disagree, giving each other that right. The tone that I'm using right now is similar to the tone I would use in the classroom. It's kind of neutral and reflective. I'm thinking carefully about each sentence. I'm not going to speak perfectly, and I might make mistakes, and I should make that clear to the class as well. But I'm going to try to think about what some of the other viewpoints about what I'm about to say are while I'm speaking. And if we can each keep in mind that as well when we're using words and choosing our words, because they can mean a lot. In the last 2 years, I have not had a discussion get out of hand because of the ground rules that I just talked about. I think we all care for each other a lot, and I've given students by this point grounds to disagree with me or each other kindly and with kindness. And most students feel comfortable participating in my room because of that. I feel like it also helps to tell them how much you care about them. They have been my sense of normalcy all through the last 18 months of the pandemic, that I've looked forward to speaking to them every week or every Zoom or every class meeting. And when you have that, I feel like that might be what we're lacking sometimes as a society, even a global society. And that's where there's not that basis of caring to start the conversation. You get that down and you could talk about anything. And we've gone through presidential elections for my last 6 years teaching, and we've always been able to have a productive discussion. Even if it doesn't draw a conclusion that's satisfying to everyone, or have a conclusion that can be summed up at the end of a class period. But going there, doing that, bringing topics up, and letting them stay for as long as students find them relevant, I think helps everyone. It helps students who have a lot on their minds, clarifies some of the facts, helps them see different perspectives, helps them understand each other, face each other, make eye contact, and share, and be shared with, and listen. Because once they leave high school, they may not have as many pockets of diversity with them as much as I recall my college experience being kind of oneness, although I switched colleges and found different onenesses, different places, and fantastic people wherever I went, because I tried to understand them, who they were coming from. And I've been really grateful that I've been teaching for the past few years. I like when we leave the classroom with a nodding of understanding, leaving with more than we came. And even after 2 or 3 times talking about the conversation in a day for a few minutes, by the 3rd class, still hearing things we hadn't heard before and introducing those next topics to the next 3 classes the following day. I want to be hopeful that the next generation is the light, a brighter light, a better tomorrow. In a lot of ways, I think my generation has been to the previous as well. Like we lose some things and we gain some things, right? Communication skills, verbal ability, written ability, computer skills. But there's a more open tone of acceptance and caring than I think there was when I was in high school and now I'm a high school teacher. And I think we as teachers can help model what that means, what that looks like, and what it can continue to look like. So that's my assignment for you. What do you think? What works in your classrooms? Leave a comment down below. And I wish you wellness and caring and heart to talk about these big topics. And I hope that you give students a place where they are safe and maybe feel a bit better, develop new skills and understanding because of this. We all need each other. Thank you very much for listening. Like, share, subscribe, share it with the teacher in your life. Until next time, class is dismissed. Thanks, everybody.
Let's not be threatened by people's success. Let's be curious. Let's wonder about it, but let's not be threatened by it. Let's be excited. Let's ask questions. And conversely, let's share.
Hey guys, Danny Hauger here, and this is the most inspiring episode of Inspiring Teachers yet, with a guest panel that includes Kristen Nan, Tamara Letter, Jeffrey Frieden, Becky Schnexer, and Miss Simon, all in one place, and it's phenomenal. Thank you for joining us. Before we get into the episode, I want to tell you about a friend who started up a teacher website, ampeduplearning.com, and if you're looking for a new and engaging way to get your students up and moving in the classroom, get out of the sit and get rut by teaching and checking out ampeduplearning.com. It's a 2-teacher owned and operated company in Texas. They're friends of the show. They're looking to gamify teaching with creative new activities for the classroom, from their FREC resources and escape rooms for social studies and science to speed squares and task cards for math and English. There's just tons of resources there. You can even find a couple Danny Hauger created resources there as well. And to help you out, use code HaugerHistory10 to save 10% on all items, and follow them on social media at Amped Up Learning for their monthly giveaways of Amazon gift cards, lessons, and apparel. With no further ado, let's get into the show today. It's an amazing panel, and there are just some heartwarming moments that I know you're going to enjoy. Thanks for listening, liking, watching, and subscribing to Inspiring Teachers. And here's our first ever panel episode.
Yeah, do you have anything you want to say before we begin?
Oh, we'll have things to say. Don't worry about that. All right, we'll get started then.
Welcome to Inspiring Teachers, a show bringing you classroom tips, motivation, and stories from successful educators. Join Tavis Beam and Danny Hauger as they explore the why of teaching.
Oh, welcome to a jam-packed, super inspiring edition. It's so inspiring, I'm almost perspiring because it's kind of warm in the evening, right?
It's getting warm over here.
Tavis
Definitely.
Beam is here. How you doing,
Thank
buddy?
you so much. It's great to be back.
Oh, so exciting to be here. It's good to be back, and with the biggest panel and the most prestigious guest that we've had so far. We have so much good to talk about today. I just want to mention one thing that Tavis and I are especially energized, and I don't need any reason to talk faster than normal, but it's here. It's like Costco Muffin City right now, because Tavis and I just booked a speaking engagement at St. Mary's College May 11th at the Action Research Conference. From 8:30 to 12:30, we'll be doing 3 live episodes featuring the outstanding research of students presenting their masters and doctorates. And that's just a huge honor for us to be invited. St. Mary's is full of wonderful students, and we'll be glad to be there. If you want to join, the registration is free, and we'll put the link up in the description. And it's just going to be an amazing chance for us. But even more amazing is that we have some of the greatest and most inspiring teachers on social media and around the country joining us today. And they are here with us. If we all said hi at the same time, would that sound awful or great? Let's find out.
I don't know if the computer could handle that.
We keep the audio.
All right, well, Kristen, Nan, thank you so much for joining us. And I looked a little bit at what you're doing online, and tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey about talking about grit.
Talking about grit. Well, my name's Kristen. I'm from Pittsburgh, 3rd grade teacher, a bit of a disruptor in education. Needed to go that route about 5 years ago when I was ready to to leave, honestly. Never in my life would I've ever thought that education would ever come to an end for me, but I was well at that point where I needed some change. So that's where that grit comes from. It's something that was a part of me from a very young age. So leaving anything just didn't seem like an option. But going back and really digging deep and knowing that when the times get tough, it is literally, instead of an obstacle, it's an opportunity. And it's something that I really try to strive to. I have little 8-year-olds in class, and I want them to realize it's okay. Like, we got this together, and we're going to dig a little deeper, and we're going to go for it. So yeah, that's where I come from. That's my foundation.
And that's such a powerful message for us all teachers to hear, that we're all going through those same types of struggle, and that, you know, we're not alone out there. Thank you so much for that introduction. And Becky Simon, can you tell us a little bit about you?
Hey guys, hello from Florida. I'm a teacher. I've been in teaching, well, working with kids in some form or fashion for about 20 years. I teach first grade right now. And I'm super passionate about social emotional learning. I'm super passionate about taking care of teachers and their well-being. And I don't think any of us wouldn't say we're not passionate about kids. And I adore kids. I have 2 children myself, teenagers. They may come in. I don't have a purple bedroom to hide in, so, but they may come in. They may come in a little bit later. They both have special needs. And that, like, one of the things I say to people is, I was the best parent until I had children. And then
you knew everything before you
right?
had kids,
I
right?
was so good at it. I was the best parent until I had kids. And that's kind of, I came to teaching later in life because my kids had special needs. And I was like a forensic investigator trying to figure out what was wrong with them. And that led me to the passion of coming to this, to be a teacher. So.
Wow, and the social emotional strain between so many of us is very strong. We really start to see the importance of that right away. Thank you so much for that introduction. And Tamara Letter, can you tell us a little bit about kindness, please?
Sure, I can talk a lot about this. So yeah, I'm the kindness girl. I am passionate about kindness. I have been in education for 21 years now, and I've had a couple of different roles. I've been a classroom teacher in elementary. I've been a differentiation specialist, and now I'm actually an instructional technologist. And so my job now is to work and coach with teachers and kind of collaborate with them in bringing technology into the classroom. So it was kind of a unique journey for me to be able to find a way to weave in my passion for kindness in the things that I do in my collaborations with teachers. I have 3 children of my own who range in ages from 9 to 20. And I am just so joyful to be able to share this time with you guys and talk about education and kindness and everything in the middle.
And that's a wonderful thing about kindness, is that it really goes through any discipline that you're teaching. You know, whether it is science, you can talk about kindness and how we interact with each other, or if it's woodshop like I teach, you know, I talk about kindness almost every day because my class wouldn't work if we weren't kind to each other and creating a safe environment. So that's such a powerful message. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
thank you.
Now I want to bring in the sports broadcasting background just because it feels like we're doing starting lineups, you know? So from the Inland Empire of California, he's one of the teachers teaching survival and thriving. It's Jeffrey Frieden.
Hey.
Jeffrey, I give you a little extra.
Yeah, you did.
No charge.
What, show me up there.
Tell us about yourself, Jeffrey, and for the people who didn't see our previous episode, what is it that drives you in teaching?
Well, I love it. It's a weird story for me getting into teaching. I had asked somebody today, actually told a student today, they were talking about it. And it's kind of like, here's the analogy. If you've ever given a pet a bath, like where you have to put it in the bath and it just kicks and screams and like doesn't want to get in there, that's actually kind of a good metaphor for how I got into teaching. I resisted so hard for so long, and then I got in there and I loved it, and it was exactly what I needed, and it was perfect for me. So I've been doing it for 14 years down here in Southern California, where I met my wife, and we have 4 children. Oh, that's right. And yeah,
cool.
It's on video now, and it's not just audio.
Yeah,
but,
Hollywood. Michael Bay.
I have that spread like Tamara has, where it's about 10 years apart from my 10-year-old to 5-month-old who you may hear eventually. She was crying just a second ago. So.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sure the great lessons of inspirational teaching will calm and soothe, as it often does. It'd be really also really funny if I transitioned from that over-the-top intro to said, and Becky Schneck's here.
Yeah.
Becky is super fantastic. I talked to her after she returned from the Galapagos Islands, which I mean, sometimes I go to San Francisco and I get excited.
Yeah.
Becky is really amazing. She empowers students and educators through field science and real research in the field. Tavis is a former science teacher. He didn't get to meet you. I had to get you back together. Becky, how's everything going? And tell us about yourself.
Oh man, it's amazing. It's always amazing. Just an intro about me. I've been teaching for 13 years. I actually, when I first started teaching, talk about Jeff when he was saying he like fighted the education thing. I didn't fight being in education, but I fought science. I had zero interest, honestly, in teaching science. I was a history girl and I was gonna just history it up until I realized when I got into the classroom that science is like the neglected toy that no one plays with. And I picked it up and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna play with this toy and I'm gonna keep going and I'm gonna do it the best that I possibly can. And 13 years later, here I am teaching only science at a school. I teach pre-kindergarten through grade 5 science. And I just take this approach where students should be doing science, not just receiving information, not just hearing, well, this is chemistry and this is physics and this is what a volcano looks like. They should be doing the science and really getting in the field, getting dirty, experiencing what science is all about, rather than just kind of receiving information. So that's my backstory. I want to do science. And thank you for the introduction about Galapagos. I recently in the last year realized I love being in the field. And so I was in the Peruvian Amazon over the summer, and then I went to Galapagos. This summer, I'm going to Belize, and then Tangier Island, and then back to the Peruvian Amazon. So getting into the field myself with research scientists and scaling that back to students has become just a thing, and it's been super exciting. So I know I will get into that a little bit later, but that's where I am. I'm team science.
So cool. Becky's like living my Netflix library. She's coming out and doing all these adventures. You fire me up, Becky. I'm pretty excited.
Good. I'm glad.
Just a noun, now a verb.
That would be a great title for the episode. So we are a variety of teachers here. We cover a lot of different spectrum, and I'm not a math teacher, but have over 20 to 30 to 40 to 50 years combined experience. Who knows?
Sure, why not?
Who could possibly add up such numbers? Let's go in the reverse serpentine order here, and let's talk about a question that we had before we started to get us rolling. What's something you've done in the classroom recently that you feel really good about? Because what I love about all of you, and I really sincerely do, and I'm so glad you joined us, is that you guys love what you do and you talk about it all the time, and that fuels people who see that and want to become teachers or who want to reignite their passion. So Becky Schneckser, if we start with you, what's something you felt good about this week?
Oh man, so I literally in the last week have started a student-run and edited podcast, which I have a podcast, and actually Adam Welcome had pushed me. He's my pusher. He said, "Hey, why don't you?" I know everybody needs a pusher, right? And he's mine. So I have a ton, but
pretty powerful pusher. I actually get to work with him. He's from my district.
Giving me advice. So he really pushed me to get my students to make a podcast. So in the last week, I took my second graders. I started with them because they're great storytellers already. They're so animated. And I had them just run with it. And I said, listen, here's an episode for my podcast. Listen to this. What do you want to talk about? And to my surprise, a lot of them chose to talk about science, which I didn't push that agenda at all. I just said, what do you want to talk about? What stories do you have? What, how are we going to get everybody at our school excited to listen? Right. And they started talking about science. Some of them started talking about sports. Some of them started talking about travel, which I thought was amazing. And they all, our first episode hasn't been published yet. I'm hoping tomorrow I'm going to get that first episode pushed out, but that's something I'm so excited about, just to hear their stories and literally hear their voices come to life. So that's what I have.
That's super huge. I love getting students involved in podcasting. I use it as a test review for the Hauger History podcast. I have them post lessons and give pretend they're giving newscasts from different points in history. So let us know when it's out and we'll definitely retweet it. That is huge. And I'm so pleased to hear that you launched that. Going to Jeff this week, Jeffrey, how's your week going? And what's a moment that you feel really good about recently?
Well, in the last week, it's accumulation of things that I've been doing this year that's been a little bit different. I've been giving students a lot more like voice and choice, and we've started with questions. And I know the science teachers will love that. So we started with this question that led to investigation, and eventually students are coming up with their own content. It's not just me giving a prompt or telling them exactly what to do, and they're finding their own way. And I recently had them, I challenged them, hey, you need to make an argument about this. So here's several ways you could do it. So I was also, podcast is one way you could do it, a YouTube video, or do a blog post, or a series of blog posts. And I've just seen more and more students kind of come alive with that. And even to reading, we're reading Fahrenheit 451 with my sophomores right now. And I said, hey, just capture a spark. What do you think? What's bothering you, exciting you, challenging you as you read? Write something down, and then I want you to form it into a question. And I used Marissa Thompson's TQE method for that.
Cool.
Oh man, some amazing thoughts that they came up with. And I've had like 3 or 4 people sticking around after class to just talk with me about the book, and they're really excited about it. Not all the students, but there's been enough there for me to go, wow, there's really something here. So.
That's awesome. And I like that you took the inquiry of let the students' emotion drive them, because they're already invested then. So you can turn that into something productive, and you're really good at bringing a lot of student choice into your classroom. You post about it pretty frequently. I'm a big supporter of that too.
It's really great to see so many people using multimedia platforms as well. And it's a great way to access the learning of our English language learners, because they may not be able to read the textbook, but they can sit down and express themselves verbally.
Yeah, definitely. That's good stuff. We appreciate that. Tamara, your week this week, what is going on in your class and in your experiences?
So it's a little different for me because I don't have a class per se.
Right.
I just adopt every single kid in the school, claim them as my own.
Mm-hmm.
But something that I'm working on is something that I also wrote about in my book called A Passion for Kindness. We are doing kindness passion projects. Oh my gosh! So much fun. I'm sorry. I cannot contain my outburst of joy.
That's awesome.
That's good. Everybody started laughing, so it's infectious.
And yeah, and this is how I'm made. So gosh, apologies, but whatever. Can't control it. So over spring break, we just had spring break, not last week, but the week before. So all year we've had kindness initiatives. I've been working very closely with 2 4th grade classes and 1 5th grade class. So we've kind of scaled the project since we began it 2 years ago. But the big thing we do in the spring is we do these kindness passion projects, and we come in and we tell our students, hey, guess what? We're going to give you $10 each, and you're going to go change the world.
Ooh.
Figure it out.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly. And for I teach at a Title I school, and many of our students have never held a $10 bill, much less been given the opportunity to actually make a decision about how money is spent. And so it's a really empowering moment when we tell them about the project and then they realize we're serious. So right before spring break, we send the money home with the kids. And prior to that, the kids have brainstormed their ideas and who they might want to bless and what they're going to do with their $10. And they make a game plan, and then they do it over spring break. And so all during spring break, the parents are emailing us pictures and sending us little tidbits. Oh my gosh, it is so amazing. So the first week when we get back, the kids are like pinging, like they can't even, like, just, oh my gosh. So we are having them create passion projects where they share in a Google Slides, a little like a science investigation format where each slide kind of goes through that process. They have like the title slide, then they have like the procedure, their purpose, the materials. They kind of write it up in that way. And then after spring break, they fill out their results, which are non-emotional, just, hey, what happened? And then their reflections. That's my favorite part. So this week when I went into classes, I was teaching them how to import their photographs from Google Drive. And I was also showing them how to find copyright-free photos online that they don't have to give attribution to because it's great when you can, but we're dealing with 9 and 10-year-olds, so it's a lot easier just to go to Pixabay and find some decent pictures that go with your project. But we wanted to make it equitable, so those children that didn't have parental support or they don't have pictures that were sent in, that they still have images that they can add into their presentations. So they're going to continue working on this. We have a Kindness Share Fair on May 7th, where we invite everybody in, all the families and anybody else that wants to come. And the kids actually practice public speaking, and they share their projects with the world. And then we put them on a website too, to share out on social media. So super pumped, super excited to get that project going.
Oh man, that is so cool. And it didn't take long in this episode to get emotionally touched. I mean, this is such a cool process. You said changing the world, and you could definitely bet that those students will remember that, and it will change their world and perception.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I love that it's during testing season. Like you're testing, everybody's testing. Not you're doing a share fair.
Right.
Yeah. We're bringing joy to the world, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That's what we do because they're still working on their standards of learning. They're still doing their English language arts skills. They're still writing. They're still reading. They're still practicing. All of that. It's still educationally sound. Why can't we have fun in testing season?
That's so good. And who says that a part of the year that's meant for testing can't be meaningful in multiple ways? So there's so much there, and I'm grateful for hearing that. That is just so amazing how much you're influencing the classrooms of the school that you're involved in. So Miss Simon, I wouldn't want to have to follow that, but I'm wondering what your week is going like, and what's something that made you feel good, because we all have moments, grand or small, that change people's lives and change students' lives and help our classrooms. What's something that you'd share with us today?
We're having a share fair? No, we're not. But maybe one day, maybe we right now. Thank you very much for that.
That's a great idea. That's part of the show.
And one thing I will say is mine is from Twitter. And so that's kind of interesting and kind of neat. I don't know if any of you have seen or heard Fablefy, I think it is. But Shilpi Mahajan, she does this mindfulness boot camp. And I'm doing it right now. And I'm doing it for myself as an educator, but I brought it into my classroom. And so we're just paying attention. We're doing noticings. What do you see? What do you think? What do you feel? Look at your breathing. And what I've noticed is it has sort of given me this atmospheric change in the classroom of like sort of a peace-filled feeling, but also just noticing all the feelings that we have. It may be anger, it may be frustration, and just pressing into those things and noticing those things. So that's one of them. The other thing that we've been doing is a check-in through our social emotional program. It's called Sanford Harmony. I'm not plugging it. It's just what we use as a district.
The cards are good. The boxes of cards.
It's great. And I love the check-in. And so we're checking in and saying, what's your struggle? What's something that's really challenging in your life right now? And you would be just blown away. I'm teaching 6-year-olds, and just some of the things that they say, if this space is safe enough, the stuff they're going to share is wild. And they also hold you accountable too. And so just having that check-in time, and then during the check-in, finding out that there's ways to solve the problems. So, and then checking in what's great in your life. Conversely, how can we be grateful for things? How can we have gratitude? How can we, so that's been it's no share fair, but it's been a good week.
Sounds like a good week.
It's a share fair. I think it counts.
It's a share fair.
Yeah, we're all sharing.
Everyone's getting checked in with too. Everyone is a part of the conversation. That's
right.
I love class conversations. So that's wonderful. I really liked that. And Kristen, what is something this week that you feel really good about? And by the way, you are one of the most positive people on social media. The next question is about social media. So I'm just really grateful for the things you post every day.
Oh, thank you.
No, it makes me reflect nearly every day of something that you share. But what's a good moment from your experiences this week?
So this week started our state testing, and I know that for many people they're like, like that is not the way we viewed it all. My little people, this is like our championship game. It's like we're suited up, we're going in there with our equipment, and we are ready to rock and roll. The biggest part about it is it all goes and boils down to those relationships, because honestly, when we walk in the door every day, it is like it's our family. This is, hey, I missed you. Like, get in here. Like we're hugging it out. And as my, former third graders are walking by going to fourth grade, it's like, hey, come on, you got this today. And we're loving on each other. So that kind of spills into a big social emotional basis that we had over the last couple of weeks. We did Walk in My Shoes. And it's just something that I actually blogged about it recently. It's something that is very dear to my heart, because when I was a child, I really felt that if every teacher realized they were impacting my life every single day, they probably would have viewed things a bit different. Because as at the end of the day, you are going to impact. It's just whether or not it's positive or negative, but the pendulum's going to swing one way or the other. So with Walk in My Shoes, I started off with Dr. Seuss's My Many Colored Days, and it's literally like the simplest book ever. It just is colors, and the kids can kind of imagine how they feel about that color, whether it's yellow or black, and you might think you have like an idea of what they're thinking, but it is unbelievable what that color can mean to them. And so I go through the book, and then we start with just like little cards, and they get one card, and I'll have them hone in on what a black color day is like for them. I'll have them hone in on a yellow, and then I go with like the blasted like rainbow of like, what's that look like when multicolors are coming at you? Because in all honesty, my son, who's 16, he is such a powerhouse. He works with his OCD every day. So when I see rainbows, when I see colors, I see the emotions that go behind my son every day. And those are the type of children we're working with. And if we don't have a relationship with them, we have nothing. So as they are doing the Walk in My Shoes, they're filling their little cards out. And at this point in the year, it's the most invaluable moment when you realize that risk-taking that I've modeled, that vulnerability, that imperfect person that I bring to the table every day, and I allow them to see that they're a part of my world in that craziness that I am. It allows them to be themselves, to be able to vulnerably put down on paper what that colored day looks like for them. And prior to that, I asked them to bring in a pair of shoes. I always have extras that I bring in myself, but we then take our cards and we attach them to our shoes. And we have like a little bit like a fishbowl talk, and we'll talk about what each color looks like, and how is anybody else really going to know what that color day is like for us if we're not vulnerable and allowing them to come into our world, into our space? What our actions are meaning, what our words are meaning to them. And in these kind of moments are the most precious, because these relationships have been built from day one, and they will last a lifetime. I'm 22 years into teaching. My kiddos that are in their 30s still come back to see me. We'll be talking about these moments because they don't ever break. It's as we're talking about these shoes and they're holding on to them, I'll say to them, all right, guys, what do you think? What should we do with these? How can we lead? As leaders, where can we put these? And there's always one that says, hey, let's put them in the hallway. Mind you, there's nothing else to tell why these shoes are there. There's nothing else. It is literally one card on the top that says, take a walk in my shoes. And those little shoes line the hallway. And it's literally mind-blowing as you're walking down and you just glance and see these sweet little shoes, and you stop and you read a card. And that's the moment that it truly takes you to your core, when you realize this is a whole package every day that we're privileged to be working with. So yeah, Walk in My Shoes. It was a big moment for us. Yes.
What a great way to teach social emotional skills, and they really get to think about what other people's perspectives are.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
I'm going to piggyback right on then. I'm going to ask you about yours right after, but I'm going to take something right out of that page, in that I teach government and U.S. history for juniors and seniors in high school. And we oftentimes get very divided in our national discussions and in our politics, and it can be very difficult to share or to try to present things neutrally and try to present all sides. So we're going over political parties. The first thing I did was teach the basic core values of each. I spent equal time on each, but then I did 2-minute video sampling a person from each party at a high point. at a point of respect where they brought the country and a president from each side, and even people from Green Party and Libertarian, where they're spotlighting the fact of unity, right? Where we're all Americans, and a moment at which the country was succeeding because of something that they did that was looked upon by everyone as progress for the nation. And I think that opened their eyes, and a few of them said, Mr. Hauger, I didn't know that there were good people on like different sides. I'm like, absolutely, this is where we live. You know, this is so important, and the respect we have for people's opinions. I have them go to four corners of the room based on strongly agree, slightly agree, and we respect each other. We listen to each other. There was not a fight. There was not any kind of disagreement, and we all left understanding. And I asked, if you don't understand, ask somebody, help me understand what you mean. And it was just beautiful. Everybody left feeling like a family, and it was really strong. So Tavis, how about you? And then I know you're going to get to a different question because we all have great stories. We might only get one more question.
I know, right? Really quickly, I'm a woodshop teacher, technology maker, academy teacher. I really have one of the best jobs ever, where I just get to build things with kids all the time. And I'm learning a lot in this position, and I'm not huge in technology, and I just got a beautiful $5,000 desktop laser cutter. And I'm trying to figure out how to work it. I don't really know. So I do what I always do. I ask one of my kids to figure it out and then teach me. And it's just amazing to watch these students just navigate through all the different software and finding the files. Like, oh no, you need to convert it. Use this right here. And it's humbling for me. And I can take a back seat and I can trust these kids and know that they're going to do it because they're excited and they're genuine and they love it. And then I get to show my kids how many times we failed along the way, how many different cuts that we made that were wrong. And I've been running the laser nonstop for the last 3 days, and I've only had one successful project. And one of my first things I teach my kids is the Adam Savage quote, "Failure is always an option." And at first they're always like, oh, it's okay to get an F. It's like, no, that's not what it means. It means that when you engage in building, making, learning, anything like that, you've got to let go of your ego and just understand that you're going to make mistakes. It's not going to work. And I'm not going to grade you on whether or not you're successful. I'm grading you on your engagement. I'm grading you on your passion. I'm trying to get you to be as excited about making and understanding that don't be so fixated on the end result. It's about the process to get there.
Amen.
Amen.
Preach.
That's really great, man.
So everybody here, I was looking at the panel, and everybody here, one thing that we all have in common is that we've all in our, we've got so much free time as teachers, we've all decided to also have a social media presence as well. And I wanted to hear a little bit about why we decided to do this, why we decided to have a social media presence, and how has it impacted your classroom? And how have these conversations that you're having online taught you, and what have you brought from your classroom to the social? I know that's like threefold question
and
here.
Plug your account.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah.
So just to reiterate, everybody has a social media presence here. Tell us a little bit about your journey into becoming a social media face as well as a teacher. And I thought, let's just shake it up a little bit.
Sure.
And I'm going to start with Tamara. Can you tell us a little bit about what brought you to social media?
Well, I'm a technologist, so I actually give teachers professional development in how to use social media. So in order for me to teach people, I really have to know how to do it myself. I first connected with people on, actually, I think my first social media experience was MySpace. I was using it to connect with my sister, who at the time lived a couple states away.
So cool.
And then when MySpace folded, we moved over to Facebook, which was brand new.
I so don't want to interrupt, but MySpace is the reason the show's existing, because his wife and I met on MySpace before college and we wouldn't be here together. So please proceed. They did not sponsor this episode, by the way.
Internet
well, now we're all dating ourselves and how old we are. But yeah, so I started MySpace, and then I got on Facebook, and I was really happy with Facebook. I was like, oh, this is going to be where I live my life, for the rest of my life. And I was really using Facebook to connect with family. And to be honest with you, it really stayed family oriented probably until I got a book contract, and then my world started like exploding. But then I kind of gravitated a little bit towards Instagram because my daughter was a teenager and that was the hot place for her. And I wanted, you know, to make sure she was doing the right thing over there. So I learned a lot there. And then Twitter, I first joined Twitter like, oh gosh, 2008 or something when it first came out. And I just could not see the purpose of it. It seemed, it didn't allow you to do pictures, 140 character count. I was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And I'm supposed to learn it and teach it to people and be excited about it. So it was quite a while. I don't think it was until maybe 2014 when I presented an ISTE Ignite that I started realizing, whoa, wait a minute, there's all these people on Twitter, educators, and they're connecting. Maybe I should be doing that. And so that's really when I first started making a more concerted effort to connect with people. And I think I was so excited when I got that first 100 followers. Like I was like, oh my gosh, I'm famous. Like I was so excited. I was like, I'm in triple digits. Yes, you know. And so I think from there, when I started understanding the platform better and then realizing the power of connecting with so many amazing people personally, really helped me to find value in the platform. And now in my role as a technologist, I'm supposed to not only provide professional development for teachers and helping them embrace it and see how they can use it to get their own personalized PD and to connect with other educators, learn and grow, but to also empower students to learn how to use these social media platforms in a respectful, positive way to not only share their own story, but carve out their own path before they're even needing to. So, you know, it's no longer like a digital footprint, it's a roadmap of your life. And so I wanna make sure that the students that I'm working with, even though they're all under the age of 13 and technically not allowed to have those social media accounts, I wanna make sure that they're aware of them and that they know how important those media accounts are. So I share mine with them and I show them how many followers I have, and we post tweets and we see how many people retweet them and like them, and we just share conversations about that because I think it's important for everyone to understand and to harness that power of social media.
Yeah, just what's your brand? You're 13. Come on, tell me. You know, you gotta know your path. Yeah, but it's really true. Becky, can you tell us a little bit about your journey into social media?
Which Becky?
Oh, I'm sorry. The Galapagos Island, Becky.
That's awesome. I hate following you, Tamara, by the way.
But no, it's joy.
Yeah, well, my journey into social media is very, very similar. Started out on MySpace, you know, jumped over to Facebook. I jumped on Twitter and had the same reaction. I was like, what is the purpose of this? Like, I can stalk celebrities. Like, that's awesome for 45 seconds. And so I was on there and I was like, okay, yeah, great, Twitter. But then I read Teach Like a Pirate by Dave Burgess and jumped on the Twitter train, and I got all these names and I was like, oh my gosh, who's this? Who's this? Oh my gosh, they're sharing all these awesome ideas. And then I started sharing. I was like, well, this is something I did. And then you start seeing all these other teachers looking at what you're doing and they think it's great. And I'm like, oh, but I just stole like all your ideas. So it just started being like this big snowball of what's going on, what hashtags am I using to get different information to different people and to get different information from other teachers. And it's just, it's blown up. I did the same thing Tamara did. I got 100 followers and I was like, whoa, like this is amazing. And I just recently got 1,000 followers and I was like, oh man, like I am like making it big time. But
hit of dopamine every time, right?
I know all those milestones. You're like, dang, this is it. I'm like Jay-Z level now.
There you go.
But I just use it a lot. I honestly use it to steal other people's ideas, and I'm just hoping that every once in a while they're looking at my ideas and saying, oh man, that's kind of cool. Can I steal that? Can I make that my own? And that's how I'm using social media, just any way possible to share. I've used it to get so many ideas from everyone else, like everyone on this panel. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm fangirling over here. Like, I can see them like face to face. It's crazy. I can't believe I'm on the panel with them. But that's, in a nutshell, that's my social media presence is throwing out content and then stealing other people's content.
We learn from each other out there. We don't need to feel lost and reinvent the wheel. We can learn so much from each other. Jeff, can you tell us a little bit about how you got into social media and what you've learned? And go ahead.
Yeah, I've been dabbling in social media for a while. Not in MySpace though. I did not get on that bandwagon. And
You're
I did
missing
not
out,
think I would.
man.
Yeah, I didn't think I was going to be on a panel that gave so many shout
How'd
outs.
you ever make it through?
Yeah.
But like a couple of years ago, I was really invested in my district and doing this. And by the way, I'm doing a lot of like touching my glasses and like fixing my headphones, I feel like. So sorry about that. But anyways,
I almost knocked over the microphone a second.
Yeah,
So.
well, it was so close.
yeah. So I for a couple of years I was dabbling there, but I was mostly invested in the people in my district. And for whatever reason, it wasn't clicking with my district and with my site where I was at the time. And so I decided to pull back, but I was like, you know what, I got some good ideas and I want to get them out there. And I had a friend who was encouraging me, hey, have you thought about writing that down? Have you thought about writing that down? And so I was like, well, I think I could write a book. I think I got a book in me. And if I'm going to write a book, I should probably get all these social media accounts to promote it. And so that's kind of like what led to the blog and well, on and on from there. And it's just really been a great way to connect and network. And I've learned so much. And now I'm moving into like podcasting space. And it's been really, really wonderful to connect because, and it turned out that I was right. There were some ideas that I had in me that did resonate with people out there. For whatever reason, it wasn't landing at my brick and mortar place, but it was landing out there. And so that's really why I got in. And then, yes, I'm also there for the theft and the stealing. So my main purposes.
There's a lot of value out there in theft and stealing.
And that's the thumbnail right there.
Drive it like you stole it. Drive it like you stole it.
Miss Simon, can you tell us a little bit about your social media experience?
Well, I started on MySpace. Actually, I really did. But Facebook for a long time was my social media. Almost the same exact story as most everybody's had here. But one of the things for me was I felt like I came a little later in life, so I got a buy because I was that parent and I was that person who kind of naysayed education for a little bit. And so now I get to be somebody like, remember how I said, I was a parent before I was a parent. I was such a great parent. Before I was a teacher, I was the best teacher and knew all about education until I became one. Right. And then it was like just the shock and awe of everything. And so now I feel like I get to say the hard things. I get to say, hey, this is stressful. This is a really challenging job. This is a really, and sometimes it feels like a job and sometimes it feels like a calling. And there's a whole lot of pressure. And so just being able to put those things out there and being able to kind of say the hard things every once in a while. So that's kind of the platform. I've only been on Twitter for 6 months, but it has been a saving grace. Kind of what Jeff was saying about the brick and mortar, just having trouble making connections here, not because there isn't passion, but sometimes there's a threat, I guess. I keep saying out there to people in my life everywhere, let's not be threatened by people's success. Let's be curious. Let's wonder about it, but let's not be threatened by it. Let's be excited. Let's ask questions. And conversely, let's share. Like, you got good stuff, share your stuff. We are all in this for the babies. We are all in this for the kids. We are all in this. I mean, I may not be the next female president, but I might be teaching her. Or the first one, I might be teaching her. So I got to be prepared for these things. And so social media has been like, just a blessing, a boon to have all those people on Twitter having these same sort of passions and feelings and ideas, and just this synergistic talk with you guys has been ridiculous and crazy, and I'm so grateful. And so just getting the word out there about things like special education, dyslexia, talking about the hard things, talking about social emotional learning. So for me, it's a platform and just a way to share joy, share excitement, share ideas, and just get the same back. I mean, just feel that exact energy back, kind of reflected back.
It reminds me of an interview I heard recently with the founder of Twitter, and this is the heart of what he wanted Twitter to be. He wanted it to be a platform for people to connect. He wanted it to be a platform that we could share information. And I know he's been making the podcast rounds recently. I can't remember his name, but it's on the top of my head, but a very interesting podcast with on the Rich Roll podcast. I don't know if you ever hear that. It's a pretty famous one, but he interviewed him recently. And it was just a really, really neat to see that that's kind of like the mindset that he came from when he wanted to create it. And finally, Kristen, please go ahead and share with us, tell us about your journey with social media and how it's affected your teaching.
Absolutely. It was actually non-existent prior to just a few years ago. We were forbidden, strongly encouraged to not go there. And as much as I'm a disruptor, I am rule abiding in that way of like, listen, I have some professional compliancy there that I'm like, it wasn't worth it. It was just like, okay, it's all right. I'll stay in my little space. But here was the issue. At the time that I started to feel smaller and smaller, I was shrinking as an educator.
Right.
That was when I almost walked away. And I never, ever considered walking away from the children. I was shrinking because I didn't have options. I was shrinking because I didn't have opportunity. My district was not financially in a position to be able to send me anywhere to do anything. And I was within these four walls. And I'm a sharer. I'm an idea generator. I can't stop it. The ideas are constant. But with that, I also need the people that are willing to tweak it and implement it and help me make it come to fruition. And I didn't have that, not because I didn't have beautiful people within my wing, but my wing, I mean, we have a world out there. Like this is global impact. So at the time we had a change in administration, and Dr. JC Maslick is my assistant super. And actually we're in the midst of co-authoring a book together because of this. Nice. And she came in and she literally challenged us. And I am all about give me a challenge. I'm like, yeah. And she was like, okay, your first challenge is you're going to get on Twitter. And I was like, I don't even know how to do that, right? I am so embarrassed. I had no clue. So I was like, okay, so here's the thing. I am willing to do it, but can you please show me how? Because I don't have a clue. So she's like, oh my word. Like, I think she was just like, what is happening? And what did I get myself into? So I get on, and believe it or not, the very first opportunity that came my way was iMOOC. I mean, George Curis, innovator's mindset, like, what are the chances that was my first opportunity? I'm talking within my first 10 people to connect with. I had no idea how beautiful this moment was. And I was like, sign me up. Why not? Let's do it. Like all of a sudden I had this chance to learn from other people. And from there, it was connecting with, they've become my dear friends. I mean, Tamara is my dear friend. We were ready to share a hotel room at a conference and we've never met each other, right? So I'm not kidding you. You can't make this stuff up, right? But here's the ticket. The ticket is that I am just one person in my student's life. I'm one. They know that when they walk in the door every day, they have all of you too. They know the names, they know the connections, they know all the books. My entire library is, they read them with me. I read when they read. So it's one of those moments like, oh my goodness, Mrs. Dan, what are you doing now? What's play like a pirate? Oh my gosh, are we gonna get into Legos today? Like they get it, they get it. And so if I don't know something, I'm like, give me a second, let me box them, I'm connecting, and I do it right in front of them. I'm like, okay, Tara, tell me this, what can we do? And they're reading to my children, because here's the thing, you humanize them, you bring them, you make children realize, don't put us up there. Don't put us as teachers any higher than you. Right. Like we are all in this together. The minute you add that dimension, you're building and fueling an ego that has no business working with children. Right. So here we are with a platform like Twitter, and boom, we've got a family, a global impact every day for every kid, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's so true. And I want to, what something you said resonated with me was when you feel like you're in four walls and you're limited, it does close down your mindset and you feel like there are no options. When I knew that I had this to look forward to today after school, and I knew we had the St. Mary's thing that we just booked, then I felt like so excited in fourth period. My kids are like, why are you so jacked up?
Right?
I called on somebody, I'm like, give me that answer.
Right?
Because when you are fulfilled, that's when you're filled with
when you're fulfilled.
That's very scientific.
Yes, it is. When you're fulfilling who you are and reaching out to all these different channels of creativity. And like we are all doing right now, we're giving time to connect with each other to feel more engaged. Then you are more energized for what you do. Education benefits as a result of the students who are in the descriptions. We will put a link to the books and the Twitter accounts and everything, because you guys deserve credit and followers, because you are the opinion leaders who are enabling people to create. And I'm so grateful that you would take the time to be with us today and share these stories and share this motivation. We talked social media, we talked positive moments, and we filled almost an hour. I'm so grateful, and I hope we can have you on again and talk about another subject. Tavis, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. I love doing this.
To
I always
all of
feel
our
so
guests.
jazzed.
Yeah, we love you guys. We appreciate everything you've given us. Thank you for supporting Inspiring Teachers and being here. We'll see you on a future edition. And for everyone that's watching out there, class dismissed. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you all next time. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye, guys.
As much as we want to, we can't control what's going on at home. It's going to happen. But despite that, you can control what's going on at school, and that can give them what they need.
Welcome to Inspiring Teachers, a show bringing you classroom tips, motivation, and stories from successful educators. Join Tavis Beam and Danny Hauger as they explore the why of teaching.
Welcome to Inspiring Teachers. I'm Danny Hauger alongside
Tavis Beam.
And we're so excited to be bringing you a brand new episode with Kenneth Farr. Kenneth, how are you doing today?
Everything's good. Good to
Thank
be
you
here.
so much.
Excited. Thank you both for having me.
We're excited too. Last week we talked to Michelle from Pocketful at Primary, and today we're continuing on the primary school trend. Kenneth teaches 5th grade in the East Bay area and is, from the moment I met him, one of the most inspiring teachers that I ever met. And it's a weird thing to tell somebody when they're sitting in front of you, but it's true. When I'm making the list of people to talk to, you just made such an impression on me right away. And this is like, man, love. This is like, you were just come off as like such a genuine person who cares about what they do. And I mean that in a sincerest compliment, that I was just like, man, those kids are lucky at his school, because he seems like he really cares, puts a lot into what he does. And so we're really happy to talk to you today.
Thank you so much. It's exciting to be here today.
So you're in your 5th year teaching, is that right?
This is my 5th year teaching 5th grade. So I've been joking with everybody saying 5 must be my lucky number this year.
There you go. It's like you can apply for AARP. You got your 55.
I know.
Double fives. From when we started meeting at new teacher meetings when we were working for the same organization. And how do you think you've developed over the last 5 years, especially staying at the same grade level? What's changed for you?
When you look at it logistically, I would say I feel like a lot of my curriculum is a lot more richer now. I would feel like the things that I have the students do is not just, little things that, as a first year teacher, you don't know, but, you look back and I'm like, 4 years ago, what was I doing? Worksheets, that was boring, things like that. And so just a lot more hands-on approach, a lot more just knowing your students and knowing which students can benefit from what and making lessons engaging and things like that. So that's from a logistic view. But from looking more from a moral view, and this is the one I'm a lot more proud of, I really feel like I developed wisdom. And I use that wisdom to help these 10-year-olds get better every single day. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the biggest part that's like made me really happy, as to where I was learning with them 3-4 years ago. Now I feel like I know enough. There's always still so much, further to go, but now I know enough to where, and I've seen it happen to where they don't know what's going on and I do with them, in the classroom setting. So I think that really helps just create a better flow and environment for the classroom.
Wow. Can you tell us a little bit about that wisdom? Like, what have you felt like you've developed specifically, and how are you sharing it with them?
Right, definitely. So I'll talk about the strongest one that like sticks out to me is, and I feel like I'm like jumping right into something, a little deep, but
that's why we're here. Right? I'm Kenneth and I'm a teacher.
Right? When you look at these kids and you figure out just by things they're doing and things they're saying and meeting their parents and meeting families, you see how much is going on at home. Mm-hmm. And the way I look at it, it's like I'm teaching, I have a class of 15 this year. We have really small class sizes. I am teaching 15 students who are going home being raised 15 different ways with 15 different mindsets. And a lot of them are healthy and genuine and it's exactly what they need, but a lot of them are not. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's something that I've really, really developed in, is when things aren't going as good as they should be at home, whether they're not getting the support they need, whether it's, something as small as they, don't have a snack every single day, to something, bigger areas. No matter what the case may be, These are all amazing kids. And so I think I've learned a lot about how to show, not just find the good in every student, but to show them how to find the good in themselves. And by that, just little things like, you know, when you're teaching, making sure and looking over that one student's shoulder and making sure they understand, you know, and making sure, you know, you clear your Thursday afternoon and Wednesday afternoon to make sure they're ready for that Friday assessment, you know, and have them after school with you, and, you know, just little things like that, to where you're with them, whether it's one-on-one or whatever the case may be, to show them, you know, I'm with you. I'm here to do whatever it is you need me to do, because that's, I feel like, is what we owe it to these kids, because then you're setting them up in the right way. And, you know, I feel like as teachers, as much as we want to, we can't control what's going on at home. It's going to happen. But despite that, you can control what's going on at school, and that can give them what they need, you know? So
you're really showing them that you're giving your all, you're giving everything to them. And you're really genuinely there for them.
Right.
And so part of that growth is a growth in like an awareness of all the factors that go into the students in your classroom, more than just what they're doing, but why and what are they coming from, right?
Really listening to each and every, all 15 students' needs, because each one is different.
Another thing that I've really learned is I'm at the point now to where the school I teach at is a K through 8 school, and so I'm 5th grade, and then you have it goes up to 6th, 7th, and 8th. It's not one of the schools where you leave at 5th grade and go to a different, you know, middle school. And so I'm seeing the classes I taught in junior high school now, and classes who, you know, I feel like I had so much success with, who, you know, things went great, and, you know, I was very confident sending them off. They're doing really good. However, I'm looking at 3 classes now, our 8th grade, 7th grade, 6th grade I've taught when they were in 5th grade. But you look at junior high school and it's a completely different beast. And we all know that, you know, 7th grade, 6th grade, 8th grade, you get to that point. 6th grade, you're making that transition in, and, you know, students socially just don't know what to do with one another. 7th grade, they think they have it all figured out, and they don't. And then 8th grade, they're just so over and ready for high school. And you have all of this in a big junior high school program. And like I said, amazing kids.
And they all know each other.
Exactly. They're all trying to make this all work. And at the end of the day, they're all 11, 12, 13, and 14 years old, just trying to figure this out. And so one thing I've learned is, as an elementary school teacher, and it's the last year they're technically considered elementary school, I have to make sure and every single day create an environment in 5th grade to where my 15 students are comfortable with one another and willing to be vulnerable and raise their hand and get it wrong, but know that they need to be proud of themselves for trying, knowing that they could say that silly thing and not get judged for it, just to create an atmosphere to where they, you know, truly care for one another and respect one another and feel comfortable, you know?
I'd really like to hear more about how you do that, because when I was doing elementary school, that was one of my major focuses too. And I'd love to hear some of the methods that you've employed.
Definitely. I think the biggest one that helps them, you know, start to get there is I just put myself out there in class. I'm not one of those teachers, and, you know, to each its own. Some people agree, some people don't. But I'm not one of those teachers who, you know, has to, you know, be a certain way or act a certain way. You know, if I'm vulnerable and I'm feeling sad because something made me sad, I let the students know. As an adult, you obviously, you know, only tell them so much.
Some boundaries.
Of course. But, you know, you let them know, hey, I'm feeling sad today. You know, if you're having those rough days, you can let them know. It won't hurt to go there to the extent of, you know, today's a rough day today. I'm going to, you know, I still have my game face on and know that, you know, we're going to get through these lessons today and I mean well, but if you just notice I'm a little off, I just want to let you know, it's just a sad day. And things like that, you
makes
know?
them okay to do the same.
Exactly.
You welcome that in the classroom.
Exactly.
We're all honest and open here. Yeah.
And I think that mentality is more common now than at least when I was in school.
For sure.
I don't remember teachers really opening themselves up to their class. They were very shut off. It was much more of a professional relationship, where I feel like there's kind of a culture now of really being open and honest. At least that's how I went to UC Santa Cruz. That's where I got my master's degree. And that's how I was trained, was to be the genuine you.
It's great, man. I really like it.
Yeah.
Here's what I'd like to do. I want to ask you some questions about how you got to teaching. I want to know what your path was, because I don't know a lot about you before you were a teacher, and love to get into that. So we'll do that right after the break. You're listening and watching Inspiring Teachers. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Hi, everybody. It's morning time. I've been running around at 100 miles an hour making copies, making sure everything is perfect for my students. The bell's rung and I got 36 students lined up waiting for me to let them in. Before I step through this door though, I want to take a few minutes, take a few deep breaths, and center myself. That way I can present the best teacher for my students. When you feel ready, calm, and centered, step through the door.
Welcome back to Inspiring Teachers. I'm Danny Hauger with Tavis Beam and Kenneth Farr, and we're exploring the ways in which we teach and why. And Kenneth, before I met you, I knew nothing about you. You know why? Because we hadn't met. And now that I know you and we have met, I wonder how you came to teaching in the first place, because I don't think I ever got to ask you that.
Definitely. So, a little bit of a funny story behind that. Teaching was just one of those things where I was 5 years old in kindergarten and saw my teacher with the pen. And I said, I want to be a teacher one day. I've literally been saying it since I was 5 years old, telling my family and everything. A lot of people get inspired because their teacher said something to them one day, and you know, their teacher really inspired them. Not me. I just thought it was cool that they get to write on the board and they get to grade papers and all the stuff that we as teachers like could go without now, you know, things like that. And I just have always had a really, I feel, passion for teaching. And so it's actually a funny story because I actually went to St. David, which is the school that I teach at now, from kindergarten through 8th grade. And I would literally tell my teachers, I'm going to be a teacher like you when I grow up. And I would like get in trouble in school because my teacher would be writing on the board and I would have a pretend marker and be writing on my desk with my pretend marker. And they'd turn around and be like, Kenneth, I need you to focus on the lesson, not pretend you're me right now. And I'd be like, but that's no fun. I just want to pretend I'm you. I want to teach. And so fast forward to now, being back at St. David as a 5th grade teacher, I am now co-workers with 5 teachers that I once had when I went there. And so they're looking like, you know, some kids say things, but like, wow, he really must have meant it when he was in 3rd grade telling me that he's going to be a teacher. So just going through school, graduated from St. David and went to Salesian College Preparatory. And then I had a psychology teacher, and he let me teach a lesson in front of both his first period and I think I was in 4th period or something like that, in front of both classes. Most nerve-wracking thing in my life. I was terrible. He told me, you know, that, you know, you tried, but, you know, here's what we got to work on. And I really appreciated that because now I could look back at that and say that was, you know, a real big learning experience. To Cal State East Bay, where everybody's, oh, I don't know, I'm going to go undeclared now and just take general ed classes. And I was like, which ones do you have to take to be a teacher? To graduating there in 2014, to going to St. Mary's College and getting my credential. And master's. When I got my credential, they let you choose what school you want to teach at for one of the student teacher periods, and then you go to a different one. And so obviously the first one, I said, oh, St. David, whatever they have open, I'll be a student teacher there. And so the original plan back in fall of 2014 was for me to student teach there for 3 months and then move on. And I just thought it'd be a good place to go back to start.
Right.
And so fast forward from August to October of 2014, I'm student teaching in 4th grade. My master teacher was diagnosed with cancer.
Oh, wow.
And she had to take the rest of the year off. And so our principal at the time said, do you feel comfortable long-term subbing on top of earning a credential right now? And I was like, I don't know. And after thinking about it, one thing came to mind. I'm not going to let this class just have a bunch of substitute teachers. And so I went on to teach and be a long-term sub for those last 7 months of the school year. And then fortunately for us, the master teacher got to come back to teach 4th grade, and the 5th grade teacher left. And so he said, how do you feel about looping with your class over to 5th grade? And my credential program was so understanding and so equipped and letting me stay at that, you know, placement and doing what I needed to do. And so fast forward to, I've ended up following that class from 4th to 5th grade, and then I've been in 5th ever since. So technically, my 5th year teaching and my 4th year teaching 5th grade, but who's counting now?
Hey, we'll edit out the AARP joke.
I know, right? And it's a really special / emotional year because that class that went from 4th to 5th is in 8th grade now. And they graduate this year.
Man.
So,
Oh, that's gonna be. So it sounds like your heart has always been in it.
Definitely.
That's amazing. And so now that you've been a teacher for 5 years and you've always known you've wanted to do this, how has your motivation changed?
I think it's gone from just kind of doing it to now I'm at a place where I've had those, 4, 5 classes. I'm seeing, siblings come in, and I'm just at that point to where like I'm in a groove now. But to be honest with you, it's the same motivation, the same passion I wake up with as I did the first year. That part has not changed. That's one part that's truly stayed the same.
It's just like been your North Star your whole life.
Right.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty
cool. That is
cool.
Wonderful.
What's one thing when a class moves out from their last day in 5th grade and moves to the next room, moves to junior high, that you would have liked them to learn outside of the curriculum that you teach? Something you want them to get from you.
Stay true to yourself. Stay true to who you are. Because when you move on in, junior high, high school, college, life, job, that doesn't do anything but get more difficult. And that's a hard concept for 10-year-olds to understand. A lot of people don't understand that until they've already experienced it. And that includes myself. And so we actually, on the last day of school, I teach at a Catholic school. And so you get to, bring the religion and, sense of God and everything into it. On the last day of school, I bring them to a nearby park. And it's a beautiful park. And we take the day and we go over there. And I have what's called a closing retreat with them. And I read them this long spiel about the year, and we have jokes, and I leave them each, and I say their name and say something I want them to take with them out of 5th grade. And I always tell them if it's one thing out of all the things I taught about, fractions and nouns, verbs, adjectives, and the solar system, if it's anything you've heard me say, I want you to hear this. And then I give them each a piece of advice leaving. And then I have them each, we pass around a string and we're all holding it at the same time by the time it goes around the circle. And they say something that they've, learned and want to take away from 5th grade. And after we finish, I tell them, you hold on to that string and that stays with you. And I cut each piece of the string and we tie it around our wrists. And so funny thing about this year, I keep each string each year, and you can't tell because they're all really like tangled up and whatnot, but there's 3 strings on here, And so a lot of them obviously like fell off or something like that, but they keep their string and they come back and they say, Mr. Farr, I will never lose that string. I have it, at this special spot in my room because I still remember that moving forward. So I think to answer your question, stay true to yourself and know what it is you need to do to become better.
Phenomenal.
And it sounds like you're really facilitating that through relationships, your relationship with the students and their relationship with each other as well.
Definitely.
That's really great. You talked about what it was like for yourself as a student. Is there a teacher who made a big impression on you, or something that you find yourself modeling or trying to become in your own way? Anything like that you'd share with us?
I have to be honest with you. I don't have that one teacher in my life who's just like, that person just really, really. But I think what's really helped me be here is that over the course of all my years of each parts of my education, I've had teachers who just generally look out for you and just show you that they care. And I think that's kind of instilled in me now. Well, I didn't have that one, this person is the one person that I could say, look, I do have teachers who have done that, but just not that one person who sticks. But I think I've consistently just had teachers who just truly are doing it for the right reasons. And I could tell really looked out for me looking back. And that's really, really helped.
That's very good.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that.
No problem.
So I'd like to try something out with you on the Inspiring Teachers that we haven't done before. Let's try the lightning round. We're going to try some rapid fire questions. I just want you to associate whatever first comes to your mind. There's no wrong answers, just embarrassing ones. Just kidding.
That sounds good.
No, it's yeah. Let's just see where this leads us. And
I apologize in advance for my answers. Let's see how good / not good these are going to be.
well, let's find out. So, Kenneth Farr, this is the lightning round. There's 5 minutes left in a day. You have no plans. You've come back from an assembly, and you didn't expect to have those 5 minutes. What do?
Open discussion. Pull up the stool. Talk about anything.
All right, pretty good. Recess time. Oh no, look, raindrops. What now? We're staying inside. What do we do, Kenneth?
Technology is beautiful nowadays. Everybody on the Chromebooks. Make sure it's appropriate. Make sure you're playing good games.
All right, pretty good. PE teacher called in sick today. I need you to cover. What games are we playing?
We have to go Heads Up, 7 Up. Have to go Four Corners. Can't go wrong.
Classics. The classics.
Lately, it's been Warriors highlights. Try to keep it athletic.
Hey, I'd wait for a game where the Sacramento Kings won and I'd show all the highlights for a whole year. Favorite classroom movie?
We read holes in literature, and I always let them watch the movie after we finish the book. It's always inspiring watching them compare and contrast.
And they pick out everything that's different.
Every single thing.
Everything.
Stellan Nats isn't fat in the movie. What is this?
Favorite subject to teach?
Math's the easiest for me, but I have more fun teaching literature and reading.
A quote or motto that you live by?
Oh, that's a tough one. There's so many good ones. A teacher should never look down on a student unless they are reaching to help that student up.
Phenomenal.
I love that one.
And way to just pull that one out.
Yeah, that was, for having a bunch, that was a good one to pull from. Best field trip?
We go on an overnight trip every year. Monterey on Thursday. Aquarium, beach, stay the night, get up Friday, San Jose Technology Museum of Innovation.
Ooh, man.
That's my overnight trip.
Happiest moment you've ever had in a classroom? First thing.
Just watching my students.
Oh, no, that was not the first thought.
Okay, I'll do a selfish one.
Okay.
My first class I taught, that class that started in 4th and went to 5th, they surprised me in 5th grade of Christmas, and they bought me a $500 gift card to Nike because they know I love Nike. Will never forget. I have a video of the look on my face when I realized how much money it was for.
It's Christmas.
I'd have to show you guys that.
That's beautiful. That's really nice.
Yeah.
Favorite historical person to teach about?
That's another one. It's just so many. I would have to say Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And most recently Barack Obama.
You survived the lightning round. How do you feel?
Alive. I survived it. So,
I'm glad you mentioned Martin Luther King Jr. I feel like he's my favorite American. Like when I teach that, I get so proud of what he did and how he did it. And I always say, like, I would never be a fraction of that amount of bravery to be able to speak for what you knew was right so far before anyone was ready to hear that message.
Right.
The brazenness of it, the boldness, but not just that, because as someone who's come from radio broadcasting, his voice, and not just his voice, but his words.
Right.
Unbelievable. A poet, but so powerful. Like, very few people, very few speeches, and I prefer the mountaintop speech, one of the last things he said publicly, can bring me to tears by just hearing it for 90 seconds.
Yeah.
That's something so amazing to me.
It's so true.
I would teach that when I did 4th grade, and we would read the March on Washington. It was a book version of it, and this kind of outlined everything that happened on that day. And what I really liked was showing clips of, I think it was John Lewis, who was a very young man who gave a speech that day, and then now he went on to be a U.S. Senator, I believe he is.
Yeah.
And it's just really moving to take a bunch of 4th graders and dissect that speech and really go through what is he saying here? What is the point before you show it so they really understand the gravity of what it is that he's talking about.
Right. And I just feel like I try to teach my students to, look at the things that he did and apply it in your lives. Not directly the exact way, but in ways that you can. Look at the positive in things. Fight for things, but do it respectfully. When you say things, don't get upset and irritated and say something to hurt somebody.
Right.
Say something and make sure it has meaning.
Right.
And then you'll have so much more respect.
Great lesson.
Right.
Great lesson.
Absolutely.
Enjoyed that.
Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, we were just watching The Great Debaters in class. Have you seen that? It's about the 1935 Wiley College debate team.
Of course.
I didn't know that James Farmer Jr. is one of the characters marched with MLK. That's So that's a good one too. There's so many good ones that you might go to. I was trying to think of one of mine. Like when you taught history, did you teach history at some point? Yeah, 5th grade, right?
Yeah, when I taught 5th grade.
Was there somebody that you really liked talking about?
Well, I did Martin Luther King when I was in 4th grade. That one really stuck out the most for me. I'm trying to remember. Nothing's really coming to me right away, but yeah, it really stuck out because we did a whole big unit on it, reading the book and watching the videos, and I think it really touched a lot of people.
You know who else I like talking about, just because we're on specifics for a moment? Someone who I feel like really doesn't get any credit for his early life accomplishments and all the consumer advocacy of like Ralph Nader in the 60s and 70s, accomplishing so many changes, seatbelts, prescription label warnings, clean air, clean water, and the boldness of that, the brazenness of that, standing up to a multinational corporation by yourself because it's the right thing to do, you know, regardless of whatever the end of his career has been, which can be more polarizing. I admire that kind of
He was just standing up for what he believed was right for no other reason than believing that it is in fact right.
I think those are the kinds of lessons I super enjoy in ways that I can't model, you know? So I feel like that's great. Kenneth, this has been real eye-opening. It's been inspiring for me. I know it's been inspiring for our audience. I hope you'll come back and join us again for a future episode.
Please, I would be honored.
Yeah,
Thank
well,
you
absolutely.
so much.
We would love it. On behalf of Kenneth Farr and Tavis Beam, I'm Danny Hauger, and I folded my arms like this. We'll see you on the next edition. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
And another thing I would tell them is to live and read wide. And so we've already just discussed a whole wide array of things that have come together to create me and to create you all as well. And so it's my background as a magician, my background as a street performer, my background as an MC, my background as a basketball coach. All these things have come to create me. It's because of living wide and reading wide. Don't just get stuck in the education section of the bookstore. Some of the best, even though I publish education books, some of the best books are outside of that section.
Little by little, I started to see that what my students really needed was not so much the textbook as it was a teacher who was mindful about what they were teaching and trying to create a learning experience custom made for those kids.
Welcome to Inspiring Teachers, a show bringing you classroom tips, motivation, and stories from successful educators. Join Tavis Beam and Danny Hauger as they explore the why of teaching.
Hello and welcome to Inspiring Teachers. I'm Tavis Beam. Along with me is
Danny Hauger.
And today we are talking with Matt Miller. Matt, thank you so much for making time with us today.
Hey guys, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. So we've been talking with a lot of teachers, just really hearing about their story, what got them into teaching, and their why of teaching. So can you start us off? Tell us a little bit about what you do and all of the wonderful accomplishments that you've had so far in your career.
Oh, goodness. Well, I right now I do professional development, and I write the Ditch That Textbook blog, and just a variety of other things related to that. That whole Ditch That Textbook thing. But before that, I taught high school Spanish for 11 years, and got into it kind of almost by accident. I was a journalism major in college and thought I was going to be a newspaper reporter or a newspaper editor. Graduated from college, went out into the real world and got a job as a newspaper reporter. And I hated it, sadly.
What was it about it? Because I worked for the LA Angels. I used to look down the newspaper line in the media box and see a bunch of faces and face palms, and someone hits a grand slam on the 4th of July and they don't even lift their heads. What was it that didn't appeal to you once you actually saw it?
Well, for me, it was sort of, it had to do with the content. I think that I was covering county government, which was not super exciting, and there was some kind of shady things going on in the county government. I was supposed to, like, storm in and demand answers, and that just really was not me at the ripe old age of 23 years old. So one thing,
street cred yet.
yeah, or the confidence or the life experience. So long story short, my wife was a teacher, and I started to realize that the things that I loved about journalism mostly revolved around helping writers improve their stories as an editor. And I started thinking, oh my goodness, that sounds more like education than it does journalism. So one thing led to another, and there I was in the classroom, went in on an emergency teaching permit, didn't have a student teaching experience, didn't have really hardly any education background whatsoever. And there I was in a classroom full of high school kids trying to teach them Spanish. And it was a wild ride after that. But, that's sort of the origin story behind all of that.
Pregunta, ¿por qué Spanish?
Wow, we got Spanglish going on today.
Hey, I'm 50% Mexican, so I'm just trying to.
So you're going to speak in 50% Spanish. Okay, now I understand.
I'm being true to who I am, and that's what the show's about. So, but why Spanish?
It was just, to be totally honest, it was when I decided I wanted to go into education, it was mostly because I wanted to teach, not so much because I was in love with the content area. And I was thinking, my background is in journalism. There were only like 2 or 3 high school journalism jobs in the entire state of Indiana. So that wasn't going to happen. So I thought, what is it that I like enough that I could teach day in and day out every day? And I enjoyed my Spanish classes in college and in high school. And that just seemed like the best route. So that's how I ended up there.
Excellent. Very nice.
When did the ditch that textbook philosophy start? When did all of that generating of content and become quite a revolution, I think? And there's a lot of good to come out of what you're writing and what you're doing, and suggesting that we're always evaluating what is the best way to teach. But where did it start?
Yeah. So for me, it was a few years into my teaching career. I'd been teaching for I'd kind of figured out on the job, so to speak, how to teach. And about 3 or 4 years in, I was teaching very traditionally: textbooks, worksheets, workbook pages, lots of sitting, and there was a fair amount of lecturing. And I started to, after I'd done that for a little while, I started to come to this scary realization that the kids in my high school Spanish classes couldn't speak Spanish.
No.
You have a problem. Yeah.
Paperwork and
Yeah, exactly. Turns out the textbooks and worksheets don't make fluent Spanish speakers. And I was thinking, babies learn how to speak English on their own without verb conjugation drills. There has got to be a better way to do this. And I just started experimenting with things. I started trying some conversational Spanish stuff. I tried pulling from my students' interests to try new things. I started incorporating technology. I basically just kind of saw my classroom as a lab, and I was a scientist doing experiments. And I would gauge the results, and if things didn't work so well, I would look at them and figure out why they didn't, so I could learn a lesson from it. And if they did work well, I'd reverse engineer it to figure out why, so I could build on it. And just little by little, I found things that worked better than doing the comprehension questions at the end of the chapter, and little by little, I started to see that what my students really needed was not so much the textbook as it was a teacher who was mindful about what they were teaching and trying to create a learning experience custom made for those kids. And so through that, I started kind of weaning my way off the textbooks until eventually one day I'm going, why do we even have these things? We don't even need them anymore.
I'm sure your colleagues are all thrilled and throwing their textbooks out the window right now.
Oh, thrilled. Yeah, it was such a smooth, easy journey, and there were no complicated discussions.
It's a light bulb moment for everyone.
But in reality, what you're saying is wonderful, but labor intensive. There's a lot of front end work that you've got to do. So how is it being received, generally speaking, not necessarily your colleagues, but on a whole?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is labor intensive if you want to try to scrap a textbook all at once. Now, what I almost always encourage teachers to do is kind of like wean their way off of it little by little, which is funny because, and there's a whole story behind this, which is funny because I didn't do it that way. There was a moment, kind of like an I can't take this anymore moment that I had in the middle of a class at one point, and the textbooks went in the closet and never came back out. I don't recommend
Dead
that.
Poet Society, you're tearing the pages out.
It wasn't quite that dramatic. I wish it was. I wish I had a story like that, but sadly it was.
Captain, my captain.
Yeah, exactly. No, never had.
Capitano.
I wish. No.
For two
but really.
Good job. Dose for dose. Sorry, we went too far.
No, that's fine. That's fine. But it was like, I mean, it is labor intensive if you try to do a lot of it all at once. But I think if you find a lesson that isn't working the way that you want anyway, you know, one of those it can't be any worse than this kind of lessons, and you try experimenting with something like that, and you just do it little by little as much as you can. You know, you might get kind of gung-ho like I did and try to do a bunch of it and sacrifice some of the time and the effort that it takes to do a lot of that. But I think it can be done little by little over time. And yeah, there is that whole like, you know, realization that you have at some point where you're going, if I was doing this, if I was letting the photocopier do all of this work, it would be so much easier. But then you also have those moments in class where you truly feel like yourself, like your own personality as a teacher. You feel like you're making your own unique contribution to that class. And I think in those moments, for me, that's what made it worth it.
And so what advice would you give to a first-year teacher who is coming in, who still hasn't really learned management systems, organization systems, how to even present themselves? So much of my first year did rely on the textbook as my guide of scope and sequence, and just what am I going to have them do for the next 90 minutes or 55, depending on how long your classes are. So what advice would you give to a new teacher in that circumstance?
Survive.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. I would say survive. That first year, especially for me, I didn't have a student teaching experience. I didn't know what in the world I was doing. No shame to you for doing whatever you need to do to get through that first year and to learn about what it's like to actually be a real teacher in a real classroom, which is very different from the picture that you get painted in a lot of college education programs. There's still so much on the job training, so to speak. But then maybe after that first year is over and you reflect back and you think, what did I like? What went well? What was effective? And what can improve? And once you've got that first year behind you, then maybe you start to change things a little bit, and you start to realize, I think that's one of the hardest things to do, especially for new teachers, is to find their teacher's voice. Find their personality as a teacher. Who do you want to be as a teacher? What kind of legacy do you want to leave? And those are such huge questions, even for seasoned teachers. And I think once you get a little bit of perspective and you start to see what that's going to look like, and that might be after your first year teaching, might be after your third year teaching, might be after your second month teaching, just depending on who you are and what your experience is. I think at that point, you start to change course. And so, in that case, if you need that textbook to be that framework to help you see what comes after what, then lean on that as long as it's necessary. But once you start to see there's a better way, maybe that's the time to start to change.
Really good point.
Yeah, it sounds like with confidence comes the ability to build and construct and make your way, like you do in any career. So I hear how it started. And I hear where it's going and what it's doing. And I love when I've created a new project that gets them out of their seats or investigating each other. We just did a great oral history project where they had to go research someone in their family. And so many students said, I learned so much about a grandparent. I had no idea they were this or that. And that's such an enriching life experience. I have a question, though. When someone is so novel and comes up with such an idea that really pushes the understandings of what a teacher can do and does, has there been pushback? Like, has there been difficulties? And what did you do to stay focused and inspired in your goal and find your teacher voice? So how did you overcome any obstacles that would come, any pushback that has come?
Yeah. I think anytime you try to do something different and you try to change, there are people whose comfort zone you start to, you start to butt in on a little bit. And it's like humans, I have found, and it seems like especially us here in the United States, we are so addicted to comfort. And when there aren't structures in place to push us out of our comfort zone, it's easy for us to just stay there. And I think I know there are a lot of teachers who want to push their comfort zone and they want to grow for the sake of their students, but we know that there are some of them that are very happy and very content to just continue to do what they've always done. And so, yeah, for me, I've had my fair share of pushback, whether that's being in the classroom and having students who have done school a certain way for years and are good at it. They are good at playing the game of school and they know how to collect the points and get the grades. I've gotten pushback from them. I've gotten pushback from parents where I wanted my students, for instance, in my Spanish classes to be more conversational and talk. And they saw that it was pushing their kid out of their comfort zone and they wanted to save them. And so in that case, I got pushback from parents. I would have pushback from teachers who thought that I was going a little too far, or the things kids got to expect from my class, they didn't like the fact that they expected it in their class too. Right. And so you get a little bit of that. And I think my answer to this might lack a little bit of flash. I hope it doesn't disappoint you, but I think it's the right answer. I think you got to look at the kids. And I think you've got to see, is this pushback that's coming from wherever, what's the heart of that pushback, and is it best for kids? Is it best for my students? And I saw the enormous gains they were making. See, I didn't get pushback from very many of my parents because they would come in and they would say, oh yeah, we took 3 years of Spanish in high school and I can't remember a word of it.
Right.
You hear that so often, but their kids would come home and they would talk in complete sentences from Spanish 1. They weren't perfectly accurate, but they could talk. And so they saw the results. And see, I think when it comes down to all of that, you look at the kids, but you also could look at the results. Yeah. See, whenever I think you get pushback, you're afraid that you're going to get pushback. You build your case through results. And so that could be something very small where you take one of those it can't be worse lessons and you gauge the results. And that doesn't have to be points in the grade book. It can be how engaged the kids are. It can be how you see them interact with each other. You can see the way that they think in their faces sometimes. And you gather those little bits of results. And when you start to see positive results, to me, that's permission to take it to the next step.
Right.
And I think whenever your school leaders see those results and the parents see those results, that's the language that they speak. And it's hard to argue with that.
It's listening to your audience and making it around what they need. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Making a student-centered classroom, not a textbook, curriculum, whatever it is. It's about the kids. And really listening to them and reading them. That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yes, we're inspired by the fact that you stuck with your gut and went with it. And now so many teachers are following your lead and doing other similar materials. We too, when we started talking about teaching, our wives are both teachers. So much like yourself, we talk about teaching constantly. And teachers burn out, teachers leave, just like newspaper journalists or sports reporters, right? So we created this to keep the motivation, to keep the passion up. We all need a lift, and we all can be that lift for each other to know there's people out there who are creating student-centric classrooms and doing so much. We just have one more question. We're grateful for your time. And that is, when your students would leave the room at the end of the year, what's one thing that you would like to have them learn from you besides just curriculum?
Yeah. I think that's a great question. And that's something that I really believe in too. And first of all, can I just say from what you were saying earlier, if that's the mission of this podcast is to encourage teachers in that way, thank you. Thank you for doing what you do. And, it's a real issue, teacher burnout, and the fact that we've got really, really good teachers leaving the profession. So thank you for doing that. I promise I wasn't just saying that to buy time to answer your question.
A journalist.
So
such a thing?
No, we don't know how to manipulate the conversation like that. I think the big thing is that I wanted students to know that their voices were valued. And so when we were doing little practice activities, or they were creating something within the language or whatever, I wanted them to know that their unique personalities were important, because that's really what's going to guide them into their adult years and into their careers and into their relationships. And it's so hard to build confidence in who you are. And I know working with teenagers, which I spent my entire classroom career doing, that's such a formative time when it comes to that. And I think that kids just need to know, hey, I may be a little different, but I have a unique personality and it's important. And I think that's what I wanted to shine through every single class.
That's really wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. I really like how student-centered you are. You're really focusing on the individual. And I think that that's really where we draw a lot of our passion from this job. It really is about the relationships that we build. Sure. And the more we can get them up out of their seats, not doing the work, we're giving ourselves the opportunity to create an environment where you get to interact with them, you get to know them, and you get to make them part of your life. Yeah. Thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate your time and everything that you've shared with us.
Oh, my pleasure. And again, thank you guys for what you do and for encouraging teachers. It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you so much. For Danny Hauger, this is Tavis Beam, and class dismissed.
.com. Use promo code HaugerHistory10 and get 10% off all of their wonderful resources for your classroom and planning needs. Today, we're talking about how water can change the world, and an organization that's doing it each and every day since 2006, Charity Water. And you can go to charitywater.org to learn all about their story, and I'll be presenting you with some of their data and information as we go today, where 100% of the donations they raise go directly to clean water projects around the world. Their work is fantastic. I've been supporting them for years, and every year I donate $1 for each of my students. Right now, there are 64,999 clean water projects funded around the world in 29 countries that are serving 12.7 million people and growing weekly. They do fantastic work, and so that's what we're talking about. On Inspiring Teachers, we have interviews with educators around the country and resources to add to your teacher toolkit each and every year. As I've gone through my learning, this has been a wonderful resource for me. Thank you, podbean.com, for donating the bandwidth for this podcast. So I started looking for a charity that I could share with my classmates and students and colleagues at school that would be impactful around the world. And I wanted to show them that the things that we're learning can change the world, and just their existence can generate thoughts, which will generate actions and behaviors that will go on to change the world. And so I was looking for a way to prove that to them. And so on day one of class, while we're team building and getting to know each other's names and who we are, I tell them that just the fact that we're here together is special, and there will be people who will benefit from the things that we learn and grow together. So I donate $1 for each of my students. It's an expense that's not reimbursed by the school. And I've done this each of the 7 years I've been teaching. And I give them the total of how much that adds up to, and that, you know, their existence, if they decide to do something, can be valid and productive in the world, as well as the democratic nature of each one of us, that, you know, if we decide to do something and take action, things can change. And Scott Harrison, the founder and executive in charge of Charity Water, is a great example of that. When he grew tired of the party promoting scene, I believe in New York City, where the company is headquartered, he decided to start having awareness to be raised about water in the world, first in Uganda. And he traveled and done nonprofit work. And he had a party with an open bar and asked everyone to pay $20 at the door. And then instead of pocketing the $15,000, he fixed 3 water wells in a refugee camp in Uganda. And that's how this whole thing got started. And if you go to charitywater.org, you're going to see a number of a myriad of organizations that are helping and supporting, and private donors offsetting the costs and fees associated. And that is
part of the reason that they've gained more notoriety and trust, because they know that the donations will be supported, and that the donations are going to go to where you want them to. So as a teacher, I think it's a great way, as a history teacher, to open up the ability for students to trust you, to kind of see what you're all about. And I think that that's a pretty great thing. I think that, having a classroom that is built on growth and generating trust is wonderful. And so in just a moment, we'll be joined by Annalise Bourgeois to talk more about that. She is a wonderful person and representative, the supporter experience senior manager for the organization. So we'll be right back with Annalise in just a second, right here on Inspiring Teachers of Charity Water. And she's the supporter experience senior manager. Annalise, thanks for joining us.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Me too. I'm so glad to talk to you and talk to someone from this outstanding organization. So how did you first come to Charity Water? I talk to my students a lot about preparing for life and, what are some jobs you could see yourself in? What are some paths you would like to impact in the future? So how did you come to the organization?
Yeah, I'm happy to share that. It's actually pretty funny. So my college is actually 15 minutes south of the Charity Water office. And when I was a senior in college, I took this nonprofit management class, which was an amazing class and was sort of, my first intro into the nonprofit space and just understanding what are the key differences between for-profits and nonprofits, and what are some unique challenges that they have that for-profits don't. And one of the classes that we had, we were talking about Charity Water, and I actually had Scott Harrison came and spoke to our class, which was really great. And so that's when I first sort of heard about the organization. And then I had a really good friend at the time who was interning here, and there was this receptionist position opening up, but she still had another year of school. And she said, I think that you'd be a really great fit here. I think you'd really enjoy the position. And she asked me to apply. I went through, I think, 7 or 8 rounds of interviews. And then I've been here for 5 years. Last week, I celebrated my 5-year anniversary here. And it's been a really fun experience. It's been really challenging, but I've learned so much, not only about the nonprofit space, about marketing, about branding, about, development work. I've learned a lot since being here, and it's been a real joy.
Fantastic. And good for you. When you saw the opportunity, you found it. You found a road and you got in. And I like that you also said it was challenging, because sometimes those things that are really difficult can be very rewarding when we have to use kind of all of our talents and abilities and energies towards that. That is amazing. So I've told my students a little bit about how Charity Water works in 29 countries and has scaled up significantly since 2006. And, with additions like yourself and others, has really grown. What is it about the company's philosophy? Because your website says that while the water crisis is huge, that we're optimistic. It's something I talk about in class, which kind of goes directly juxtaposed to when we talk about wars or chaos or things that are happening in modern day or in history. So tell me why that vision with philosophy and optimism is important. What have you seen from your experiences, and why do you think that's an important way to be and think?
I think there's a couple of different ways to look at it. I think the first thing is that we talk about how fundraising should be fun. And all of us, through just being a human being, has the opportunity to be generous. We can be generous with our time, generous with our thoughts, generous with our finances, generous with our talents. And so I think that's really inspiring and really hopeful. So when I think about that, I think, oh, wow, like every single person, just by the nature of being a human, has the ability to benefit or support other people around them or other causes or things that are important to them. So that's a hopeful thing. And that really speaks to our vision, reinventing charity and really redefining what it means to engage with a charity. And, I think that there is just this misconception of, okay, I don't think in high school I was thinking about like, what causes am I going to give to? What causes am I really going to care about? And I think that there's been like a really big shift, and I think that we're becoming more aware. And I think that there's a lot of hope in that. For us, what gets us inspired and makes us feel really hopeful and optimistic is that the water crisis is something that is 100% solvable. We know how to bring clean water to every person on the planet right now. It's just about having the capacity, the funding, the ability to do so. And so I think that's really exciting for us. And I think people are more, excited about getting involved when they know that, they're not going to read emails that are meant to guilt them or make them feel bad about their circumstances. It's just about creating awareness and in telling inspiring stories. I got to actually go to the field in Cambodia when I want to say it was like my second year at Charity Water. I was able to go to Cambodia and really experience what I had been talking about for 2 years, what stories I was sharing. I got to see it firsthand. And the people that we meet are stunning, beautiful, smart, incredible individuals. And I think that it would be a disservice to them if we were to share about the community members in any other way. And I think that, we're not trying to pity, we never say, we talk a lot about just the language you use, we're never saying, oh, that poor old woman. We're saying Helen, Mulatani. We want to make sure that we're really making everyone feel really human in this process, and that, there is a lot of hope, and the people that we work with, our local partners, are amazing. The people who work at these local NGOs that help make this work possible are really, really smart. Something I always say when I have students or I bring them in for tours is, these are the people that would be under the Forbes 40 under 40 list. These are the people, they're not getting this recognition. They're working 6 days out of 7 days of the week. They're innovators. They're thinking of, okay, we have this household solution of how to bring clean water to a household. How are we going to scale that to provide clean water to a school? And their team is thinking about, how do we innovate this process? How do we get community buy-in? And we work with just such excellent people that it's hard to not feel inspired just by all the amazing people that we get to interact with.
That's pretty cool. I mean, the ripple effects, like no pun intended, of how that could really grow is amazing. And the awareness that you mentioned 2 or 3 times is huge. Same thing for anything we teach in the classroom, that if you don't know that something happened, you're definitely not going to think of a way to reconsider what could have happened, or how to shape how we think about things like this in the future. So that is huge. And then with that awareness has come the impact. Like you said, we have the tools now and the technology to make this happen, just getting the will behind it and the funding that goes, which is awesome. And trying to explain to my students how 785 million people around the world still don't have access to clean water. If you put that in context of how that would affect a teenager in areas where clean water is not available, can you tell me more about, like, what are some of the things that would become difficult and challenging and time consuming when that's not available?
Yeah, of course. I mean, for any women in the audience or people who are listening to this, you probably still wouldn't be in school. You wouldn't make it to high school. Women and girls are in large part responsible for collecting water for their families, and that's how they support their household. And they support their mothers by helping with that. And so women aren't able to stay in school as much as, their brother counterpart. And so they're really falling behind, and they're not being given the same opportunities. So if you were a teenager in a developing country, if you were a woman, you wouldn't be there. You wouldn't be in school. And something that I think doesn't get talked about as much, but is such a huge factor, is by the time you're 11, 12 and a woman gets her period for the first time, when you don't have access to water and you don't have the ability to clean yourself, there's a lot of shame related to that, and you don't feel comfortable going into school. And so you're missing, 5 to 6 days of school a month, just because of something that's so natural and happens to, all women or most women. And so I think that's one aspect of it. And then for, the men, it's just like getting sick, right? Kids in school, right now maybe there's like a process for, can I go to the bathroom? Maybe you raise your hand, maybe you have a hall pass, bathroom pass. When kids want to go to the bathroom in most developing countries, they're going behind, in a nearby pond, or they're digging a hole and going to the bathroom. They don't have access water to be able to wash their hands. What was something that we were told so much in the past year? Wash your hands. That was something that as Americans, we were told that that's going to help save people's lives. It's going to help keep us safe. It's going to help us remain healthier. And so when you don't have these basic necessities to be able to keep you healthy, you're going to the clinic, a couple times a month. that's keeping you out of school. So if you're constantly sick, I think there's also a lot of studies about the effects of not having water as a young kid while your brain is still developing and how important that is for brain development. So there's so many different ways that just this one thing, water, really affects education and would affect, you know, our lives if we were living in a different country.
Thank you for that explanation about the multifold reliance and necessity that water plays in our life and our health and our wellness. That was great. Give us a lot to think about. Can you talk more about how water access also might fight poverty? Like, for example, on the website, it says in Africa alone, charitywater.org, in Africa alone, women spend 40 billion hours a year walking for water. Access to clean water gives communities more time to grow food, earn an income, and go to school, all of which fight poverty. So, you know, how important is that to your overall goals and something that goes associated with providing this clean access?
Well, I think the easiest way to explain it, or the way that it makes sense to me, is it's a full-time job, right? Collecting water is taking you several hours every day. And what would it look like if you got 40 hours back into your week? You would then have the opportunity to earn income and to be able to provide for your family. And if both, you know, your mom and your dad are able to earn income for your family, how much better off would you be if you don't have to then have the burden of collecting water? So it provides a lot of opportunities to just save you time and reallocate that time in a way that can really benefit your family. And, you know, you talk about the ripple effects, no pun intended, but, you know, if your mom is able to earn income, you might have more money for school uniforms, for these just like basic needs that everyone needs to, school entry fees, or to be able to just give your kids a better opportunity. And if your kids have better opportunities, then they can do better than what their parents had. And then if they can do better, like you see, you know, we have this in ways in America, right? Like people say, you know, I'm the first college grad in my family. And what does that really do for the next generations of your family and your community? It does so much. Not saying everyone needs to go to college, but just saying that there's a lot of benefits to having access to more time and more stability for your family.
Yeah, that's excellent in terms of advancement and potential and reaching those things. So that's awesome. I think it's such a beautiful goal of the organization to think about what it means to quench somebody's thirst, just for how much that can be symbolic of so many things, and that we all as humans should have that in our lives and it not be a worry. I wonder, just, you know, in your 5 years experience there, you know, has there been a probably many moments, but something that stands out in your memory where you just felt like you were a part of something that's really important, or maybe something that you would share that you felt like, wow, this is why I'm here and this is why I'm doing this?
Man, I think it happens in little ways every day, which sounds really cliche and maybe a little bit like a canned response of some sort, but it's very true in that, you know, I have the pleasure of working with our community. That's a really large part of my job, is working with our community of supporters and speaking to students like you. And I think what really inspires me is just seeing the ways that our community really sacrifices and makes changes within their own lives to be able to give. You know, I canceled my Netflix account, or, you know, I'm not going to drink coffee out anymore so that I can give $30 a month to Charity Water, because I really care about this cause. And I think that there is something, especially, I mean, last year was hard for so many reasons and everyone keeps saying that, but, you know, I had the opportunity to receive emails that said, I know this is a really hard financial time for so many people, and so I'm going to actually up my giving in this time. I'm going to give because I know other people can't right now. And just when you see those little glimmers into humanity, and you see people who are giving from such a pure place, it really brings something out in you. And just like, there is hope. There are great people in this world that are generous and are caring about people that they're never going to have the opportunity to meet. So I think that happens to me pretty regularly. I think one specific moment, I think, was when it was a charity ball. We used to do this annual gala at the Met for some of our major donors, and we had done a live feed in Ethiopia, And so our team was in Ethiopia, and we were deploying or sending the money that we raised that night. We sent it early and helped build this one well. And we were able to see, I think it was like 6, 7 in the morning, we were able to see this community get clean water for the first time live in real time while we were in New York City. It was like 9 or 10 at night our time. And I think it was really moving. Everyone was crying in the room. You know, there was this beautiful instrumental music playing, and it was just really interesting to see, wow, we're like sitting in New York City, and there's something really beautiful and amazing happening in real time. And every one of these people in this grainy live stream video is now going to have a different life, and are now going to be able to reap the benefits of, you know, this generous community that's in this room right now. It was really beautiful.
Ooh,
and I mean,
you threw that in there. that was awesome. That's a great story.
But I have so many experiences like that, and you know, getting to go to Cambodia was really amazing. And I think what I really took away from that trip is just like our local partners are incredible, and we, you know, our idea of work in the US is a lot about like, is this going to feed my goals? Is it going to feed my career goals, where I want to be? And, you know, their kind of point of view is, I want to be able to provide clean water to fellow Cambodians, you know, people in my community, people, you know, in the rural areas. You know, they live in the city and they're working at this NGO, and they're like, I want to be able to raise, you know, this level of service in the way that people are living around me. And it's really, really beautiful to see. And they're just extremely smart, extremely passionate, selfless group of people. And it was really inspiring to just know that there's 4,000 other people like this that are working at the local organizations that we work with that are amazing, you know, and they're never going to be they're never going to do a podcast. They're probably never going to be in some article somewhere, but that's not why they do their work. They don't do their work for public recognition. They do their work because they think it's really important to care for their community. So
yeah, very, very cool. It's a good reminder that for us, it's a national thing or an international thing. For the people who are affected and working towards the goal, it's very local and very personal. Let's end on the personal note that we started at then. So Scott came to speak at your school and you inquired, and it you know, created this path for you. So you have the chance now to speak to 200 students. And then every year when I show this, you know, what's your, I know, no pressure. What's your message to students about, I guess, seeking out the opportunity in the way that you did? What would you say to the students and teachers who
Yeah, I mean, I would have to say my advice that I give to college students, high schoolers who, you know, maybe want to work in the nonprofit space. I think it's not so much about what do I need to do to work in the nonprofit space, what books do I need to read, or what do I need to do? It's about like your attitude that you bring into your work. When I started at Charity Water, I started as a front desk receptionist, and my job was to greet people, to bring them coffee, to answer the phones, to deal with people when they were upset. And I think that there's a lot of ways in which, you know, our culture really looks down on certain types of work and views it as not important. And, you know, I now manage a team of 2 people, and I get to work on strategies and think of new initiatives that we can do. And I think I was only able to do that because I was willing to do whatever was needed to be in service to the organization. And I think that the best thing that any college student, recent grad, can do is say, I'm ready to do the work, whatever that looks like, and I'm going to do it with a positive attitude. And there's nothing more gratifying, I think, for managers to be able to say, wow, you did all the things that were not fun. You know, I was reflecting on my 5 years at Charity Water, and something I mentioned in this like Instagram post was, I remember a day where we had, for that gala actually, we needed to put wet sand in all of these jerry cans that we're using just for visuals within the space, but because it's the Met, they didn't want them to tip over. And so we had to put wet sand to weight them. But at some point there was 60 jerry cans with wet sand in them that needed to be taken out. And, you know, I managed our volunteer program at that time. And so I had to rally some volunteers and me on a 6 p.m., 7 p.m. at night and go into the office and physically shake wet sand out of jerry cans. And it sounds so silly, but that's sometimes what looks like. And I think the worst thing that someone can do for their career is say, oh, I don't really want to do that. Or like, oh, I'll do it, okay, but so annoying. Or come into your meeting with your manager and say, oh, that was so frustrating. I can't believe you made me do that. But if you say, we did it, it happened. We laughed about it. We said we were doing like jerry can shake weights. And I think there's a real opportunity to not overlook any type of work. And I think if you're really willing to do whatever people put in front of you, they're going to be willing and excited to give you more. They're going to be willing and excited to find better opportunities, because they're going to see that you do care about what's doing best by the organization. You're not just there to do what you think is fun or not. So that's something that I typically say. It sounds pretty broad, but I do think that's like a surefire way to really grow and to be able to learn and have just like a positive environment at work and have people really want to work with you.
Fantastic. Yeah, and can apply to every situation as you progress in life too. So good. Annalise Bourgeois, Supporter Experience Senior Manager, thanks for being so grateful with your time. Before we go, I just want to tell everybody, especially my students, definitely follow Charity Water on social. You can pick them up on Instagram or Twitter, and go to charitywater.org and click on Get Involved. You guys can start fundraisers easier than you think. A birthday party from a few of you could really add up to a lot and could really inspire a lot of other people to support this wonderful organization. Thank you so much for your time. We couldn't be more grateful, and I think this is going to be impactful for many of our students and teachers that watch this. So thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day wherever you are right now.
Thanks
Bye.
so much.